Welcome to Try Friend Heroes, a Legend of Zelda podcast. I'm Ellen.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Cosm.
We don't have any Ben today, it's just us three again.
Yeah.
Sorry to all the Ben fans. Yeah. He said he didn't want to play Majora's Mask.
Yeah, really? What's wrong with that?
Well, he also said he didn't want to play Wind Waker, but he's wrong.
Oh,
anyway. Oh, maybe you weren't there. He just said when he was a child that it was like too... By a child, I mean when he was probably like a teen. I don't know. It was not hardcore enough for him, like Ocarina of Time.
Huh.
I think that was a complaint that a lot of people had about Wind Waker, but those people are wrong.
Yeah.
She said unapologetically.
Wind Waker's wonderful.
Link stabs Ganondorf in the skull, so...
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that Wind Waker is not scary, but it's not serious. Mm-hmm. Like, Makar gets kidnapped. Actually, multiple people get kidnapped. Like 3 or 4 people get kidnapped.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it. And you have to sneak
And it's literally,
so you don't get
it's a
stabbed.
post-apocalyptic world. Like,
Right,
Yeah.
everything's underwater. Listen, y'all, it looks cute, but it's just as serious as every other Zelda game, in my opinion. Except for this one, which might be the most horrifying game of all. So today we're discussing, speaking of which, seamless segue, we're discussing The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Oh wait, I forgot to talk to you guys before we start recording, because we should probably talk about the new game.
Ah! Yes. Yes, let's do that.
Tears of the Kingdom sounds very ominous, though.
I
was like, oh.
Tears and or tears, neither of which is good.
Yeah, it looks fun. And by fun, I mean sad and fun. Just like Breath of the Wild. Although when Breath of the Wild was previewed, I only remember, like, ooh, you're going to explore the open world, like, previews. And also it wasn't called Tears of the Wild.
Yeah, most of the early previews were just kind of like, ooh, scenery, ooh, open world. Although I remember, like, a dramatic one that had, like, the scene of, like, Zelda, like, breaking down in tears.
That's true. They probably did use
But
that.
it didn't have, like, any dialogue or anything.
No. But yeah, I think, well, I don't know if the old preview for Tears of the Kingdom is, like, canon now. You know what I mean? But the one they showed, like, a couple years ago, it had them, like, exploring, and then they awakened the scary Ganon thing, or the scary thing. But this one was all, like, you jump off of cliffs and dive, and then there's, like, you know, no Sheikah Slate things in the preview, and there was no spooky stuff, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, the name Tears of a Kingdom really does sound like that still fits, you know?
Like, the malice emerging from underground and making the castle float and stuff. And, like, Link's arm is still fucked up in the newest preview. I'm assuming the early stuff is still the same.
Okay, good. I think, you know, it's like the new Majora's Mask to the Ocarina of Time of Breath of the Wild, ?
Could be. Same assets and
Yeah.
same stuff, although they didn't turn it around in, like, a year this time.
It was like 6 years. Yeah, look forward to it, though, is what I'm trying to say. We're going to talk about it on our podcast. We've already discussed it's happening.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, I just looked at the timeline, and it turns out that we have time to play it. Yeah, it basically was perfect for when we were going to finish playing Breath of the Wild. So.
Although, to be fair, there's still time for delays.
Yeah, there are. Don't do it. Don't say that.
No, tell them. Tell Nintendo don't do it. Don't do it. Just let it out.
That's let it out.
As I recall, they usually don't delay too much once they actually have it.
Yeah, that's true. They'll usually say, like, season of...
Yeah, they're more like sometime next year.
2021.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like, actually 2023, which is what happened with Breath of the Wild 2, aka Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah. So, anyway, I'm super excited about it. Yeah, once they have, like, a date, they're probably actually committed to that date. But, I don't know, you know, whatever. There could be another pandemic. We're a lot closer. We're recording this in September. So and it's supposed to come out in May. So,
Are you counting?
yes, it's like 8 months from now. What? Guys, I didn't have to do calculus for my university degree. Anyway, I'm excited. Anyway, let's go to talk about Majora's Mask.
Yay.
In this game, we deeply and authentically experience Link's existential crisis after the events of Ocarina of Time, as we try to solve the problems of everyone in Termina, up to and including stopping a giant possessed moon from falling and destroying the world, all in 3 days. Did I sell it? I don't know. It's like, yay, question mark. This highly acclaimed 12th best-selling N64 game of all time, 12th best-selling of all time. was released in the year 2000 and sold 3.36 million copies, which is the least out of all the games we've played so far, but not the least overall.
But not the least in our hearts.
And definitely not the least in our hearts. I don't know why it was so low. I think maybe it was just getting toward the end of the N64. And also...
it is definitely very different, I think.
It is.
From all Zelda games before and after, really.
Yeah.
I think it is the most in common with Link's Awakening, which I mentioned briefly when we talked about it, but now that I've played Majora's Mask again, I definitely think that's my opinion.
That's true. And I also... So it has a different vibe.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was thinking of Link to the Past. Link's Awakening. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I was like, Link to
the Past is exactly like Ocarina of Time, except there's like twice as many dungeons. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it's kind of similar to Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
It's not as... Link's Awakening is more like whimsical.
Mm-hmm.
Ocarina of Time
Link's
is more
Awakening
like
is kind of like the prototype of Majora's Mask, I think.
Yeah.
Where someone was like testing the waters. It's like, can I go that dark? And they're like, yes, I can.
Yes, I can. Yes. Well, the interesting thing about this is that this is the first game that was directed by Eiji Aonuma, as opposed to Shigeru Miyamoto and Yoshiaki Koizumi previously. Mm-hmm. And something that I learned while I was researching for this that I didn't know, like I didn't find out until this time, is that Eiji Aonuma was brought in to design the levels for Ocarina of Time, like the dungeon levels. And like the reason that he was brought in, this is like a quote in an article, was that like nobody could design in 3D, nobody could design the levels in 3D. And he was like, really? Like, but yeah, so he's like background as before going to Nintendo, like his background in art was in like puppetry. So he, I guess because he understood like mechanics and stuff. Yeah. Apparently it was like, they were like, you do this. And he was like, okay. And then he did. So you have Eiji Aonuma to thank for the water temple. You're all welcome.
He had really good 3D instincts, because those are some very 3D levels.
It's such a great idea. So many great ideas, right? And then actually I think in Majora's Mask, so he directed this game, and then others were brought in to do like the things that like, you know, to make levels and things. So that was something that kind of like set the standard for interactivity in the levels in this game. So it's very interesting. And I think he's still one of the like main directors or whatever in the series. I don't know exactly what his title is, but he also heavily influenced Zelda going forward. So be excited.
Yeah, it's definitely a name you recognize if you're into Zelda. You're like, oh yeah, that guy.
That guy. I heard about that guy. Yes. Anyways, time to seamlessly segue into the real story instead of my
real story.
My pithy summary about Existential Crisis, which is definitely 100% true.
Yeah, Existential Crisis, the video game.
You were like, I had feels when I was playing this game. And I was like, I see what you meant when I was playing.
It's like a lot of the feelings were, don't like that.
Like, oh, another horrifying mask transition.
Yeah.
And like things where you're like, oh, good. It's like it. You put on the mask and people are like, oh, it's you.
Yeah.
I recognize you. And you're like, well, I'm glad the game mechanic is like working and I'm like getting to where I need to go. You're like, oh, good, it worked. And then you're like, wait a minute, it works. And it's like, yeah. Anyway, just slightly disturbing that people
thinking about the ethical implications of impersonating this dead person for a while.
They're like, what happens when you leave? Although they won't. I mean, yeah, what happens when you're gone? Like their mask. I don't. These are the questions that Majora's Mask leaves you with.
They're all like definitely dead. Like that happened before the time reset. So there's
multiples of them have like
technically
like,
Mikau dies in front of you, but his injuries were before you found him. So
he was wounded before. He's floating there in the ocean, and then the guy in the marine lab is like, oh yeah, did you see that like dead Zora in the water? I was like, I didn't. What? I didn't notice him, and now I'm really disturbed. Why didn't you do anything?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Darunia is already dead, right? Like you have to open the grave, and he's like, "My soul, take my soul," and you're like, I want to do this? I don't know. And then even at the end, the like Deku scrub is like there in the credits, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, they go about who the Deku Scrub is. In the palace, there's a butler that you race against. And he's like, oh, you look just like my son, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I think it was his son that
and then you see him, like, crying in front of that, like,
it's in the
sad tree
credits.
you see at the beginning. So you're like,
yeah.
oh, yeah.
Like, oh, it was true. That butler took me a really long time. I don't know.
I had some trouble with
fast.
that.
You're like, you're a plant. How can you run so fast?
You're pretty sprightly as a Deku, too, so.
Oh, I love his spinning.
And the little huffins.
Yeah. Floating.
He has really cute noises.
Yeah, he does.
Even when he gets hit by things.
I like all Link's different voices in the different masks, which is something that I guess we can talk about later. But yeah, his little Deku voice and his gargly Zora voice or whatever. Yeah.
Anyway, story time.
Tell us what happens, because what the hell? I mean,
Yeah. I'll do my best. So this is a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time. It starts out with young Link having been returned to his childhood time by Princess Zelda after defeating Ganondorf. And after meeting the young Zelda again and preventing Ganondorf's rise to power, he left Hyrule alone, tired of the fight, and seeking out his lost friend Navi the Fairy. Off to a good start. While riding through a dark wood on Epona, Link is suddenly jumped by an imp called the Skull Kid, who wears a strange and frightening mask, and his two fairy companions, the siblings Tattle and Tail, which are great names, by the way.
it's a good pun.
Yeah.
He's thrown from Epona and knocked briefly unconscious, and when he comes to, he finds the Skull Kid has rummaged through his belongings and is now playing with the Ocarina of Time given to him by Zelda. Link tries to get it back, but the Skull Kid jumps onto Epona's back and flees on the frightened horse. Link pursues him through the woods, but ends up tumbling down an impossibly long and dark tree hollow, strange visions twisting around him as he falls. He somehow lands safely, and the Skull Kid floats ominously in front of him, the eyes of the mask seeming to glow. He sneers that he got rid of that stupid horse, then declares that there's no way Link can beat him as he is now. Power emanates from the mask, and Link writhes in pain as a nightmare vision overwhelms him. When he comes to his senses again, he finds he's been transformed into a Deku scrub. The Skull Kid laughs cruelly as Link understandably freaks out over this. He floats out of the room with Tail at his side, but Tattle stays back to keep Link from following and winds up getting left behind. She immediately pivots to blaming Link for this and insists that he has to help her get back to her brother, though she does also grudgingly apologize for the whole mugging thing.
Not the cruel and twisted transformation. That, that's fine. But we mugged you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, she does just say, sorry about that stuff, so maybe she means everything.
Fair enough.
She's very tsundere.
Yeah.
As I described when we were talking in our chat.
And so Link gains a new, much more moody fairy companion for this adventure. Link and Tattle navigate through the rest of the wooded area, eventually traveling through a strange, twisting corridor that emerges into a sewer-like area underground. As they prepare to leave through the large door up ahead, a voice behind them says, "You met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" This is the Happy Mask Salesman, a character who was already pretty creepy in Ocarina of Time, but is infinitely more so here.
Yeah, why has he got the Happy Mask Salesman? He should really be like the creepy mask salesman.
Well, he's happy. He's grinning.
He's grinning sinisterly, not happily. It's not joy.
No, it's totally happy.
All the jump cuts really make him seem like not suspicious at all.
He introduces himself and explains that a very important mask was stolen from him by an imp in the woods. He offers a way to return Link to normal if he can get back the Ocarina of Time, but in exchange, he must also retrieve that special mask for the salesman. Oh, and he's also going to be leaving the area in 3 days' time, so if he could get it back before then, that would be great.
Don't you mean that'd be great?
Yeah. With little choice but to accept this deal, Link goes through the door and emerges into Clocktown, the central hub of the land of Termina, a place both eerily similar and alarmingly different to Hyrule, full of strangers wearing familiar faces.
Spooky. Your narration. Accurate.
Link is stuck within the town walls for now, as the guards apparently only let well-armed children through the gates.
You're a sword. You have a sword, so you're not a child.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, excuse me, sir.
So you just grab a knife off the counter. You're an adult now.
Apparently.
He can't do much with his limited Deku abilities, but across the 3 days, he's able to spot the Skull Kid atop the clock tower at the town center, all while hearing unsettling rumors of troubles throughout the land and of the moon above, which seems to be growing ever closer. In the last hours of the final day, Link manages to find a way to climb the clock tower and confront the Skull Kid, who has seemingly grown even more aggressive and powerful, smacking aside Tail when he tries to call out a cryptic hint to his sister, and using a strange power to send the moon crashing down on top of the town even faster. Link manages to strike him with a magic bubble and make him drop the ocarina, which Link quickly retrieves. And as Tattle desperately cries out that they need more time, Link remembers Zelda gifting him with the ocarina and teaching him an important song as she bid him farewell. Link quickly plays the Song of Time, and he and Tattle are transported back to the beginning of the 3-day cycle, just after they first emerged from the clock tower into Clocktown. They go back to the Happy Mask Salesman, who somehow pulls out a giant pipe organ out of nowhere to teach Link the Song of Healing.
He's the Phantom of the Opera.
That thing is huge. The Song of Healing, a song that eases troubled spirits, returns Link to normal and seals his Deku form into a mask, which he can use to transform again whenever he needs. The Happy Mask Salesman becomes considerably less happy when he learns that Link did not fulfill his end of the bargain by getting his stolen mask back, shaking Link and shouting that terrible things will happen if the mask is left out there. He explains that the mask, called Majora's Mask, title drop, is a cursed object said to bestow evil power on the one who wears it. The salesman went to great lengths to obtain it, and he desperately wants it back now before something horrible happens. Link agrees again to retrieve the mask, and Tattle reminds him of the clue her brother tried to give them. 4 locations, the swamp, mountain, ocean, and canyon, and a request to find someone at each. Heading out into the wider world of Termina, they find that the Skull Kid has caused trouble in each of these places. Poisoned waters in the swamp, an eternal winter storm atop the mountain, hot, murky waters in the ocean, and cursed and restless spirits wandering the canyon. And everywhere they go, they find the people of Termina suffering. Link ventures into the temple at the heart of each region to break these curses, and as he does, he frees 4 giants who serve as guardian spirits of the land. They teach him a song to call on their help, and also speak vaguely of forgiving a friend. With the giants freed, Link again goes to the top of the clock tower on the final night to confront the Skull Kid. He plays the song to call on the giants as the moon begins to plummet, and they arrive to stop its descent, and the Skull Kid falls unconscious. Tattle and Tail reunite and briefly celebrate, before Tattle turns to berate the Skull Kid for all he's done. Tail defends him, though, saying that he was lonely, and the power of the mask became too much for him, overwhelming his will. Tattle isn't really buying it, and readily agrees with the new voice dismissing the Skull Kid for his many weaknesses, until she realizes just who spoke. Majora's Mask rises from the floor.
Dun, dun, dun.
Majora's Mask rises from the floor, the Skull Kid's body dangling limply below it. It proclaims that this puppet is no longer of any use, and drops him unceremoniously, then summons a portal to carry it inside of the moon still looming just above. The moon resumes its fall with renewed power, and the giants struggle to hold it. Tattle yells for Link to play the Song of Time again, but Link instead looks toward the portal into the moon. Tattle, immediately realizing what he's planning, initially refuses to go up there with him, but Tail quickly volunteers to go instead, and seeing her brother's newfound courage, she gives in and goes to help Link, though she lets them know that they're both very stupid and stubborn.
Tsundere.
Yes.
Stand by what I said.
It's not like she likes them or anything.
No.
Inside the moon, there is an odd piece, an idyllic green field with a large tree at the center. 4 children wearing the masks of the temple bosses play around the tree, while a 5th child wearing Majora's Mask sits against its trunk. Link can speak to the children and give them the masks he's earned along his journey, symbols of all the people he helped, and if he has enough and plays their games, they'll gift him with a powerful mask before the final confrontation. When Link speaks to the 5th child, he also wants to play a game of good guys and bad guys. You're the bad guy, and that means you run. With that, Link is transported to a strange, otherworldly room, where he finally fights and defeats the malevolent spirit within Majora's Mask. When the spirit falls, the moon returns to the sky, and a new day dawns. The people of Termina celebrate, and the 4 giants speak to the Skull Kid, revealing that they all used to be friends, and that they forgave him for all he's done. The fairies, too, forgive the Skull Kid, and cheered by this, he asks Link if they can also be friends. Nearby, the Happy Mask Salesman picks up the empty Majora's Mask, noting, with maybe a bit of disappointment, that the evil power has disappeared from it. He bids Link farewell and continues on his travels, noting that Link should probably return home as well. Tal agrees with this, hurrying Link along in her tsundere way, and waiting until he's far out of earshot before quietly saying, "Thank you." The credits roll over scenes of all the people Link helped along the way, and ends with him riding back through the forest out of Termina, past a drawing made by the Skull Kid of him and all his friends.
Yay.
Yay!
I agree that the mask salesman seemed disappointed that the mask wasn't evil anymore.
Yeah.
I also don't feel like Skull Kid was like, "Can we be friends?" And like Link doesn't say anything. I feel like that conversation was unresolved.
Yeah.
And it's like they became friends, except it's like just a drawing of.
I think at that point, Link's
Skull
just
Kid.
like, God, I'm so tired.
He looks kind of fed up with all this bullshit.
Like he has a very
leaves on his
world-weary
horse.
expression
Yeah.
in this game.
He just like gets on Epona without saying anything, and they're all like, all the, like, Tattle is like, thank you, but Link is just like, whatever, man, I'm out. Which is legit, because this is a lot. He did a lot of work.
Yeah.
First
he just came off of Ocarina of Time.
Right, so he just saved the world from Ganon, and now here in Termina, it's like fucking Majora taking over. Gonna crash the world with the moon. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just one of the most terrifying images in video games, that moon.
I was, so I, like, quote-unquote live streamed this through my webcam pointed at a 3DS, because that's how I played this game, to my sister. And I got to that part in the first day where you go to the observatory, and she was like, get ready for the most disturbing thing in your life. And I looked up at the moon, and I was like, ah! And then she was like, I told you. Every time you see the moon phase, it's just like, ah! And then, like, go back to playing the game, you know what I mean?
It gets damn close, too. Like, I was messing around, like, in the last hours of the final day, and I looked up, and I'm like, Jesus, it's right there.
It's disturbing. Yeah. And they, like, made it looks basically the same in 3DS version, but I think it's slightly more disturbing. It's like enhanced, high definition disturbing movie.
We got a pretty interesting cast of characters this time.
Yes.
So we got not our typical trio. We got Link, but no Zelda or Ganondorf. Zelda appears briefly in a flashback, but that's it. And like we said, it's a much more world-weary Link this time. He's done with all this shit.
Well, he's an adult in a child's body, because he remembers everything from Ocarina of Time, but nobody else does.
We got the Skull Kid, who is implied to be one of the imps you taught a song to in the first game.
Yeah, he's like
in the Secret Woods, or Lost Woods, whatever.
Lost Woods. He's like a Kokiri that got lost in the woods, and then you teach him Saria's song, which I don't remember doing, actually, when we played Ocarina of Time. So, yeah. It's a side. Yeah, I know, it's a side thing.
Who has a pretty interesting story, like, that you get through, like, different bits of lore throughout the game, where, like, he was friends with these giants, and when they decided to become guardians of the land, he felt, like, left behind and like acted out and stuff. Then we got his buddies Tattle and Tail.
Yeah, he has not one fairy but two.
And Tattle becomes your companion in this game. I feel like Tattle is a direct response to all the criticism of Navi. Like,
it's like, instead of being helpful, Tattle is sassy.
Well, I mean, she's got more of a personality. She's more involved in the plot, and they like changed her alert to be just a little chime instead of the hey, listen,
hey. I didn't have any problems with Navi. I didn't.
I didn't mind Navi, but I definitely think like the chime is less obtrusive, and
the chime is easier to ignore for sure.
And I do like Tattle's personality. She's fun.
I think one of my issues with Navi was that, like, she would interrupt you in the middle to say something very obvious. And, like, you couldn't skip it. It wasn't like, hey, I have a message for you. It's like, hey, did you see that guy that, like, fell down that hole? You probably want to go down that hole, too. Like, yeah, of course.
I know. I play video games. Or, like, you walk up to a locked door, and she's like, this door's locked. And it's like, thanks, Navi. I couldn't tell.
I like with Tattle how, like, every time you, like, ask for advice on an enemy or whatever, she'll, like, give you a hint and then just be like, God, haven't you figured it out yet?
Didn't you fight this before? It's
like, aren't you stupid?
Like, you know all those other times that you fought things and you did this thing, right? And it's like, thanks.
We got the Happy Mask Salesman, which, what the fuck is going on with that guy? Who knows?
I don't know. It's so creepy. How does he have jump cuts in real life?
That's super unsettling. He's got, like, he's got no transition animation. He just jumps from pose to pose.
Yeah, it's so... I mean, like, I think it's the desired effect of him being creepy and untrustworthy, but it's disturbing.
Yeah, it's a cool effect. I don't really do stuff like that anymore. I like play with the that kind of, like, the visual aspect of video games like that.
Yeah,
except for, like, typical, like, you know, horror glitchy stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of Masked Salesman, I remember hearing, I don't remember if this is true, but was his like appearance based off of Miyamoto?
Shigeru Miyamoto? I don't know. What does Shigeru Miyamoto look like?
He could be. He does have kind of a manic grin. Shigeru Miyamoto.
I did hear an unrelated inside joke that there's this dialogue where the mayor is like, don't bring my wife into this or keep my wife out of this or whatever. Apparently they're all working super long hours to try to finish this game because Nintendo, at the time that this game came out, Nintendo started having a lot of competition from, like, the PlayStation and other consoles. And so they felt like they needed to produce good games faster. And then they felt like since they had the engine and stuff from Ocarina of Time that it would be easy, but like obviously it wasn't, and so there were a lot of people. The team size started off small, but it increased substantially, and then they all worked a shit ton to finish it as quickly as possible. And so apparently they were all like, you know, feeling guilty about being away from their families, and so a lot of people would say, it was a phrase that people would say, like, don't bring my wife into this or whatever. And so they added it in the game, which I think is kind of sad and funny. It's ironic.
A very Japanese way of responding to that.
Yeah. Like, I hear you. Let's put this dialogue in the game. But yeah, I don't know if his appearance is based on Shigeru Miyamoto.
From what I'm looking at real fast, it looks like that may not be officially confirmed, but apparently Tingle is based off of Koji Kondo.
Does Koji Kondo have like a little goatee and stuff?
Does he dress like a fairy?
I mean, like, I see... Hold on.
Yeah, no. His face shape does look like Tingle. I'm not even... Hold on. I see it. I don't know if that's true. Oh, what did Cosm send?
They became uneasy when asked if Tingle... Oh. The developers were uneasy when asked if Tingle was meant to be Koji Kondo. So they didn't actually confirm that either. But maybe they did. You know,
you mean by not confirming?
Yeah, unintentionally.
I think I can neither confirm nor deny.
He definitely doesn't not look like Tingle. But
yeah.
He's also not a 35-year-old fairy. Quote-unquote fairy.
So yeah, this is Tingle's first appearance.
Yeah, speaking of Tingle.
Iconic.
Like, hey, it's Tingle. I like how Tingle's like, don't steal my catchphrase. And it's like, I wasn't gonna. I also like that you can just buy maps, which is pretty convenient, actually. Like, I never didn't have enough money to buy. I think there was only one time, like, the very beginning of the game, I couldn't afford to buy, like, both of the maps at the same time that you can buy whenever you encounter him. And I was like, this is so convenient.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I just shut up and take my money, Tingle.
I like you can meet Tingle's dad, who's, like, deeply embarrassed by him.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize you can meet Tingle's dad. That's funny.
Yeah, it's the guy who runs the
fishing boat.
The photo contest at the
boat
shop.
Okay, I see.
And if you like take a picture of Tingle to him, he's like, "I'm so sorry."
Tingle's like, "I'm still waiting for my fairy," and you're like, "Okay, Tingle."
Tingle is quite popular in Japan and has multiple spin-off games, but
At least
not
2
very
spin-offs.
popular in the West.
I guess people just aren't enamored with Tingle.
Yeah. My first experience with Tingle was on the Great Bay stage of Super Smash Bros. Melee.
No, yeah.
And I'm just like, what is that?
My first encounter with Tingle was Wind Waker, but everything is sort of like chibi-ified and like exaggerated in Wind Waker, so I was like, yeah, whatever, he's just a Wind Waker character. No, he's always like that. That's what he looks like in every game. You know what I mean? Like, he looks exactly the same in Wind Waker as he does in Majora's Mask.
Yeah. Then I say the other most significant characters are the spirits that occupy your masks.
Yeah, the most disturbing characters.
Yeah. Yeah, which, like, as we said, explicitly you have Darunia in the Goron mask and Mikau in the Zora mask, and then implicitly the Deku Butler's son in the Deku mask.
And then yourself, question mark, in the...
Yeah.
What's it called? Fierce deity mask. Yeah.
Some kind of, like, other powerful spirit, it seems like.
A fierce deity. But it
Yes.
looks like you. NCU, but Shishomaru.
Yes.
From Inuyasha. I stand by my comparison. And I'll refuse
It's
to be
not
swayed
there.
otherwise.
And then just sort of a general shout out to all the various NPCs in the game who are pretty fleshed out for a, N64
Because they
adventure
have to
game.
have
Because
3
you got all
days
these
worth
little...
of stuff.
Yeah, like you see them, like, they do different things throughout the day and across the 3-day cycle, and you see them, like, have different reactions to the moon falling. Some of them start freaking out, and some of them are like, I'm staying, and...
I don't think it's going to fall. And you're like, I seen it.
It's like
the
it's
last
literally
3 days
2
in a
inches
row,
above your
okay?
head.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have, like, little side quests involved where you can, solve their problems and help them out.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Ellen.
Yes, Cosm?
Did you ever end up letting the moon fall?
Oh, I watched it on YouTube.
Gotcha, yeah.
I'm too scared to touch my save file
That's fair.
this game. I mean, I could have made a new... what I was planning to do was make a new one, and then I just didn't get around to it. But I was like, you know what? The internet can answer this for me.
Yeah.
Actually, I was looking for a video of the difference in the sound in Clocktown, which we'll talk about later.
Oh.
And the person who made that video just let the moon fall, and I was like, this is great. I want to see everything all at the same time, so helpful. Perfect. Yeah. It was disturbing, Cosm, just to clarify.
Yeah.
I remember, I didn't do it this time, but I always want to see, I think I told you, this is technically the first Zelda game I ever played, because I played the little demo stations at Best Buy. And it's just like, you know, no one ever got very far because it's the demo station at Best Buy. So you know, just Deku Link running around Clocktown with a little timer going down. And I'd be like, what's going to happen when the timer goes down? But I was never there. I was never around long enough because, you know, parents would be like, time to go.
If you had been there, you would never have played any Legend of Zelda game ever again.
Yeah.
I was like, this is like, it's like watching a bomb go off. It's like horrifying.
As far as the bosses go, we don't have a lot because we've only got the 4 temples, which I think is the fewest amount of dungeons in any Zelda game.
Probably.
Any normal Zelda game, anyway. I'm sure spin-offs do weird things. But you got the 4 masked guardians, which are Odalwa, Goat, Georg, and Twin Mold.
I feel like a kind of castle also deserves a little special shout out. That's
you got
a couple like mini dungeons like the Pirates Fortress and Ikana Castle and stuff.
Yeah, Ikana Castle I guess doesn't technically count. I guess the Stone Tower is the dungeon itself. But yeah, you got to fight like the 3 skeletons, like the king and the 2 whatever they're called, you know, servants. I don't know, whatever. His 2 lackeys. Yeah, and that's like kind of a long fight. It's like it's bigger than a mini boss, but smaller than a boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of mini bosses in this game, and a lot of them are pretty neat. Which is why I don't understand why they kept reusing that Wizrobe boss. Like, they had so many different ones.
It's like, I don't want to fight you again.
Yeah.
You were annoying the first 2 times. But there's the thing with the big eye in the Stone Tower.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember that one, yes.
Yeah, kind of like a... I don't know how to describe it. It's like
wasn't it like a floating thing with like a shadow of bats that you had to like?
Yeah, I was thinking about something else, but there was that.
Yeah, the dudes in the hallway like shoot lasers out of their eyes.
Yeah, they have lasers in their eyes, and
they're called
Igors. Igor, yes, that's what it's called. It also looks like a what's that Pokemon?
Not like a Wobbuffet Wooper?
No. It has like arms. It has like 4 limbs. Oh, it's Garchomp. I finally remembered.
Oh, okay, I can kind of see it.
It kind of looks like that, but with a big eye instead of a shark head.
I guess.
It has, like, arms, like, kind of fin-shaped arms. It's fine. You know what? I stand by what I said, just like Shishomaru or whatever joke I just made. But yeah, there's also the thing with the eyes where you take the goop off. Just like in that other game
it's like
that
a 3D
we played.
Version of one of the
Argus.
To the past bosses.
The boss's name is Argus. I looked it up. Because I was like, I swear there was this exact boss in a different game.
Yeah.
And then when I Googled, like, eye surrounded by goop hook shot, Link to the Past, it was like, there's another eye boss with a bunch of little eyes in Link to the Past, and it kept being like that. It's called Vitreous, is the name of the boss. But there was, Argus is the one that's like a blob, like a thing with an eye. As many Zelda bosses are, as we discussed before, surrounded by like little bubbles that you have to pull off with the hook shot, which was basically the same boss, but in 3D now. Yeah, because it's an N64 game.
Yeah. Then of course you got Majora, who's very freaky,
but also Russian
makes
dances,
weird noises, and dances around, and
all the screaming sound effects, variety of distorted screams were and then like moves really fast, like runs around really fast in the second phase. And then the first phase just has that like weird floating tendril hair. None of the phase, and then the last one had whips, and I was like, are we really, like, I read the description, it turns into like a whip monster with whips, and I was like, we're doing this in a children's video game, I guess. Like, I don't know, anyway, whatever. Disturbing. Also, Majora said we're evil, but Majora is evil, obviously, right? Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. Then as far as basic enemies, you got a lot that are come over from Ocarina of Time. I think the most notable new enemy is the Choo-Choo.
Oh,
which
is that
kind of becomes a staple going forward.
So all the goo on the field is Choo-Choos?
Yeah.
Okay. They have eye... Well, I guess choo-choos have eyes. They just have a different shape where they look like Wobbuffet, as Gossip described earlier. Yeah. But no, in this game they kind of look like more like pointy, like slugs. Mm-hmm. There was the electrified choo-choos in the old game, though. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah, they weren't choo-choos.
No,
we've had like other kind of jelly type enemies before, but it's also where they kind of get their sort of standard function, where they hold like useful healing things inside of them in some form. Later on, it'll be like you scoop up the chew jelly that they drop, and you can like make potions and stuff. But
you can make it explode in Breath of the Wild. Yeah,
yeah, that's basically what I got.
Good.
Well, there's the rats with bombs on their tails, right? Isn't that a new enemy too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I said they were super notable because they don't really come back that much.
Oh, that's fair.
I do like that they're called real bomb chews.
Is that really what they're called? I was just thinking it's a real bomb chew.
Yeah.
I just thought that. That's funny. Gabora came back briefly too in like the middle of the game. I was like, why are you here? This is like the mountain.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, you wouldn't think that I would just like never see you ever again. And it's like, I did kind of think that. Why are you here?
It's kind of interesting. There's a lot of like doppelganger characters in this game, which is like obviously to save on time, obviously to save on development time because they have a short time period, but it also works to make Termina this really eerie kind of alternate universe world. But then there's a couple characters who seem to be the same and were like able to cross the boundary like Link, like the Happy Mask Salesman and Gabora.
I mean, it's implied that you can ride from Hyrule to Termina on a horse. So, I mean, it's implied that they're like the same universe, like they're the same sort of like physical space. But
well, I'm not sure if you can like physically ride through it or if you have to go through the weird.
Oh, maybe it's
like twisty corridors and falling through the tree trunk with weird things floating around you. Like, there's definitely some otherworldly transition from Hyrule to Termina.
Well, even like the opening scene is also in like the Misty Woods, so it could also be that too. Yeah. But yeah, whatever. So there was an owl, like Gabora.
Yeah, I think some sources suggest that Termina is like a very like Link's Awakening, and that it like disappears after Link leaves, and because it was like created by the evil of Majora's Mask or something.
It could be.
That's not really implied in the game itself, and I think I prefer it just being like an alternate dimension or something. But
you gonna have like the same sort of like races or whatever you want to call them in Hyrule, like the Zoras and the Gorons and the Gerudos
and the Scrubs
and the Deku Scrubs. Yes, the business Scrubs. And the like whatever Deku. So yeah, it could be like an alternate world kind of thing. Like it's a place like you can travel through time in Ocarina of Time, but you can control time in Termina. So I don't know. Maybe it's a different place.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things, the theories that I've heard, and I don't know how prominent it is, but like Link got lost in the Lost Woods, and this is his like transformation into a Stalfos or something like that, because he's just been lost for so long, and like
there's a lot of like. You're dead, and this is the 5 stages of grief as you accept it kind of theories around this game. So
could be.
So after playing it this time, I have my own take on it that I haven't looked a whole lot, but I also haven't seen it before. Is that like, because I hear that it's like, you're going through the 5 stages of grief it's Link going through the 5 stages of grief, but especially after talking to the Moon Children. When you get the masks, and hearing the story of the Skull Kid, I almost feel like it's going like he's going through the grief and the depression of losing his friends, the giants, and all that. And I don't know. That to me makes a lot of sense. And I don't know.
So you're the Skull Kid's self-insert avatar in his like fever dream or whatever.
Right, just like the Windfish.
Well,
I was just about to say it's like Link's. You're a therapist. Yes, it's like Link's Awakening.
Well, it's like Psychonauts. He just went into the Skull Kid's mind to solve his emotional problems.
I think that is a good theory. I didn't think about it that way, but like. The things that the Moon Kids say, which is super fucked up, but it's great. I mean that I mean just makes you think, which is and like it's crazy because it's like this game is like oh cool, but like weird when you're if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. Like when you're doing stuff in the game, you're like oh it's really good that these masks worked, but then you're like everybody thinks that I'm somebody else, which is like. But then you get these like so the Moon Kids say, I wonder do these people think of you as a friend? I wonder what makes you happy. Does it make others happy too? I wonder if you do the right thing, does that make everybody happy? And I wonder, the face under the mask, is that your true face? And then at the end, it's, are you ready? You're the bad guy. When you're the bad guy, you just run. And, like, I think it's an interesting possibility, like, awesome, that you said, because all those things apply to Skull Kid's story.
Yeah, they do seem like it's like Skull Kid's, like, doubts coming, like, being spoken aloud.
And I think it's, like, either outright stated or implied that Skull Kid or like Majora has taken over the moon and is sort of like controlling this like environment in the moon too. So like maybe also inserting those doubts or manipulating them, because like Majora basically kind of like took over Skull Kid as implied by the story too. So it could be like Majora amplifies Skull Kid's self-doubts.
Yeah, or maybe like some of like Skull Kid's like essence kind of got into Majora, because like the Moon Children seem sort of like not malevolent. Like
no,
like they're like, oh, you're a nice person, and like asking the questions and stuff. Like
yeah, really makes you think. Anyway,
yeah, yeah. It was like late. I stayed up pretty late to finish the game, and when I got to that part where it's like, you're the bad guy, that means you run. I'm like, no, thank you.
And he's like, okay, want to play? And I was like, I don't.
Yeah.
Or shall we play, not want to play.
Yeah.
Wrong podcast. It's like, no, I don't want to fight. Also, that's like a really long, like I thought that Ocarina of Time had a long Ganon fight sequence where you go in the tower and then you fight Ganon and then or Ganondorf, and then you leave and then you fight Ganon in the, like outside the castle. And there's like multiple stages of that fight as well. But this is like, you go back to the clock tower, like call out the order, you do all that cutscene, and then you go in the moon, and if you're giving away all the masks, then you have to do all those levels to like get the Fierce Duty mask. So you do all of that, which I assume the person that I watched, because I didn't finish this game, the playthrough that I watched, the person did all of them flawlessly immediately, but I assume like you can get injured and stuff doing those. There's enemies for at least one of them, one of the kids. And so, and like one of those enemies is like an iron knuckle or something. So like there's definitely like hard enemies. So you do all of that, then you fight Majora. So it's like quite a long
Although to be fair, if
time.
you do all of that, then that fight is significantly easier with the Fierce
You get
Deity.
the Fierce Deity.
Yeah, it only takes a couple seconds if you just like mash the B button. With
Yeah,
the
I also
mask.
watched a video of that too, because the person that I watched didn't do that, which was very interesting. But yeah, you can just be like boop, 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 and the battle is like 3 minutes instead of like 10. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
What's funny in that the little sort of like mini boss gauntlet is I beat the Iron Knuckle flawlessly. I didn't get hit once, but the Garrow Master like tore my shit up. I cannot get the timing on that guy.
I got good at Iron Knuckles because we had to fight like several of them in the
I'm like, yeah, I'm real good at these guys now, but
in Ocarina of Time, in that one in this desert temple or whatever it's called. Spirit Temple, yeah. It's the one in the desert. Yeah, we had to fight. You have to fight at least like 3 or 4 of them there.
And one of them you fight as a child.
Right. No big deal.
Yeah.
That's what
You're a
bombs
child
are
this
for.
time, but you've got like, more powerful equipment.
The sword, the gilded sword, you can get pretty early in the game, and then it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the like, well,
You can get the Great Fairy Sword also, but I didn't
saw that.
bother with the Stray Fairies after the second dungeon. The first time I played it, I got the first 3, and then I didn't want to do Stone Tower because I didn't want to go all the way back out and all the way back in. But this time I got so frustrated with the Great Bay Temple that I was like, nope, I'm done with the fairies. I don't need improved defense.
Yeah, I just did them because I was like, I assume that I must do this. But it was kind of annoying, especially like the very first temple that I did, because I'm sure we'll talk about the mechanic, but like I did it twice because I didn't realize what was going to like happen when the day reset, because I never played this game before. But yeah, I like found all the fairies and I got to the boss door, but it was like getting really close to the end of the 3rd day. So I was like, I'll just restart and come back, which means you have to redo the whole thing. But I didn't know that at the time. So, I mean, it didn't take that long when I redid it, but I was like, I see what I need to do here now. I understand this game now.
Yeah.
The
I had a
hard
great
way.
moment with the Stray Fairies in Snowhead Temple, where I like missed one of the rolling jumps you have to do, like around the corner as the Goron. And as I was falling, I was like, "Oh, son of a bitch!" But then I like fell right into a secret room where a stray fairy was.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh!"
In the main room, there's one that's like up on the wall, and you have to jump down into it. So, and it's like hidden. I think you need the lens of truth to see it. So
Yeah, I fell right into it by accident when I missed my jump. So
Good
I was
job.
like, all right, that takes the sting out of it.
I hated rolling in the. I have such. I don't know if it was just me, but it was so hard to control the rolling sometimes.
Yeah, I like jumping on straightaways, but like trying to do those like curves around the corners and stuff was a little difficult. I really liked fighting Goat though. Goat is really fun.
That was
Goat's
pretty
my
fun,
favorite.
and it was easy. Like normally I have to redo a dungeon like 2 or 3 times, but I did Goat right away, and it was not that hard. I thought that was great, and I didn't even need to use like a fairy or anything.
Yeah,
like, wow,
I think they made him the easiest and funnest because like that's the one you're most likely going to have to do more than once to make it spring.
I
Like,
did
a lot
have
of
to
things
do
you
that.
can only do in spring. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I did have to do that. I think to get the sword it has to be spring because you have to go. Well, like you can't really do the dungeon, and maybe if you're like
if you're really good, you can get it in like
you can do it all in.
But you have
3
to like
days.
you have to start the sword quest on like the first day. So
Yeah, and then you have to make sure that you get the gold dust, and that took me like at least a couple times, which means it takes like a few in-game hours to do the race. And so like I don't know, there's no way I could have done it. I had to go back and do spring again, like make it spring again to do the quest to get all the stuff to get the gilded sword.
yeah.
And do the gilded sword thing, which takes 3 full days. But at least you can roll and like punch. Using the Goron mask is really convenient because the attacks are really convenient. Like you have your like whatever it's called, Goron ground pound. I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about. You can knock out a lot of enemies and stuff. It's pretty great.
Yep.
Mikau's is okay, but it's not as good. The Zora spinny spin
Like
attack.
his boomerang flipper things.
And his boomerang flippers, yeah. It's like, oh, we do have a boomerang in this game. It's just attached to me. I have a question. I have an important question. Okay, so Lulu laid the eggs.
Yes.
Did someone fertilize the eggs? Who was the daddy? I have questions.
I think it's somewhat implied to be Mikau.
That's what I thought. My question in my notes is, are
clarified
Mikau and
maybe.
Lulu an item? There's the question. I mean, he's dead now, but
Yeah, since he went through, like, you know,
he went to go find them.
literally went to his death to try and get them back. And when you heal his spirit, he has like Lulu floating in front of him, and they hold hands
Yes.
and go back to the band and stuff.
Yes. It wasn't just for the band, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Yeah.
for the band.
Anytime we can quote Scott Pilgrim, a obscure quote from Scott Pilgrim. For the band. Anyway, good. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one that saw the implications in the romance. Okay. Oh, I noticed. Oh, I thought it was interesting how they made the Gerudos like pirates in this game instead of just thieves. I thought that was cool. I was like, now our Gerudos on boats. This is great. This is great. And they're all like afraid of bees. The whole scene going in there is really funny, I thought. And like you get to sneak around and whatever, and you still have to fight some of them, but it's not the same as like the Gerudo Fortress in Ocarina of Time where you got to like fight like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. And then you can just get the stone mask, which in the 3DS version is inside the temple. I mean, inside the pirate hideout, which is super convenient.
Yes. Where is it in?
It's in the main room.
It's in the
somewhere.
graveyard in N64, which you can get
okay.
before going there. So if you know it's there, it's easy because you can get it before you even start the Pirate's Fortress.
Yeah, which is what is recommended if you're playing the N64 game.
Because I was going there to try, because I remember it being somewhere in the valley, and I was like, it's not here. What's going on? I'm so confused. And then I looked it up, and it was in the pirate. Fortress.
Did you play the 3DS version?
Yeah, I played the 3DS version.
Okay, yeah, it's in the Pirate Fortress.
I was like, how long has it been here? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Since they made the 3DS version.
That makes sense.
Since like 2019 or whatever, whenever that came out. 2017, maybe? I forget. I should know, but I don't.
It's earlier than that. But
Yeah, I think it was 2015.
yeah.
Only because I think that's when I looked at my save and it's like last played 2015. Didn't realize it's been 7 years.
Yeah.
2015 3DS. Yeah, 2015. I also realized playing this game, I remember seeing one of my friends play a Zelda game as a child that had like horseback fighting, And I was really nervous about playing Ocarina of Time because I thought that was a game that had horseback riding and fighting, but I think it's this game. I think it was like the thing where you have to stop the like bandits from the milk delivery or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It could have been the aliens, but I'm pretty sure it was the milk bandit part. And I was like, oh, this is it. Like, I just had this memory of a child, as a child. Someone else had the game, but I never asked them, like, what game it was or anything. I just, like, came over to their house and they were playing and they turned it off. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, anyway, but. Horseback fighting. Mm-hmm. The 4 Ghost Sisters came back.
Yeah. You
didn't mention that. The famous Ghost Sisters. The Poes.
Trapped by the creepy Poe collector dude.
Yeah. It's like, no. This is the first game that we played where the bad guy wasn't actually Ganon in disguise. It was just Majora. I guess because it's not Hyrule. Yeah, Ganon is all about Hyrule, I guess.
So Link's Awakening, kind of, although he did take the form of Ganon. So.
Link's Awakening, I thought it was like Ganon tried to, like, basically manipulate the Windfish to create the island to control it or something.
I don't think so.
No?
There's just nightmares.
The Windfish's bad dreams about Ganon. I mean, it's legit.
Yeah.
In Hyrule, he's the supreme evil, so it's like having a nightmare about like Darth Vader. You live in Star Wars world.
Yeah.
It's legit.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is the first one where he doesn't really show up in any kind of format.
Not even as a wizard.
Shadow.
No. Pretending to be somebody else. Like, you fight Majora's Mask and then it turns out it was Ganon all along. No, it's just Majora.
Yep.
And I didn't think that a mask fight could be scary, but it was really scary. I was like, you fight. I also read through the like something about the game before watching the playthrough at the end, and like it was like, so you fight Majora's Mask, and then it takes on these forms. And I was like, you fight Majora's Mask, but it's pretty spooky. I was like, okay. The other forms are spookier, but Majora's Mask itself, the first form, is spooky too.
Mask has a good design. It's very unsettling.
It's great. Yeah. It's got, like, drilled out holes, like a creepy hockey mask. It has spikes. It has eyes. Like, what more could you want? I have a Majora's Mask t-shirt. It's a great, like, icon of the game, too. I think everybody knows that it's, like, a Zelda thing. Yeah. It's like that and, like, the Triforce and probably, like, the sword, like, the hero's sword. It's a very, like, recognizable item from the Legend of Zelda series. So it has main character energy, which makes sense. I did find it very disturbing that you go to characters and they're like, "Hey, it's you, my dead friend."
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, totally. Is that what I need to say to like help move the story forward, I guess? Like, I'm just here to save the world or whatever. If you think that I'm your dead leader hero, like, fine, I guess, but I'm your dead
especially
bandmate.
The small child you have to lie to in the Goron village.
Hey, it's you, Darunia. Hey. And also, like, doesn't the small child's father, like, almost freeze to death?
Yeah.
Like, he's, like, frozen and he, like, unfreezes in the springtime, but... Or did he freeze to death? I forget. I think he unfreezes, but... Yeah, he's like, I'm so slow that I am frozen, or whatever. Like, okay. NPCs.
I love the beginning of this game, like the first 3-day cycle. I think it's so good that it makes you go through them and stay in that town for the whole 3 days. So you see how the town changes and how people react, and like you see what's going to happen if you fail. Like
yes, but then like you have a good. I mean, I guess if you get the ocarina, which is pretty easy. Like I had a lot of free time at the end of the third day. The first of the 3 days. The first third day. The first. The last day, the first time. So it's like pretty easy to be prepared that you can go and see how the town changes. You can see how the town changes, and you can do like a lot of the side quests that you can do in the town and stuff like that.
Yeah, but like the fact that you can't get on the clock tower until like the last 6 hours of the cycle.
Yeah, it's well done so that it's like accomplishable. But then it culminates in the moon almost crashing, and then you remember at the last second that you can control time. So, like, it's also really good, like, a strong opening that motivates you to not have that happen again. Yeah. Because everything about it is disturbing.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about your playing through the game? What do we call this section? I don't know. Gameplay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I mean, we've talked about a lot of it. We're still in 3D, baby.
Yeah, we're gonna be in 3D. Well, no, I guess we're going back to Oracle's. But for
we kind of go back and
consoles-
forth between handhelds and 3D.
It's the system is based off of Ocarina of Time, so there's a lot of similarities, but there's also some differences. When we get to the like glitches and things, it'll be a little bit more apparent. But just some of the movement things, like Link now does some cool flips during certain jumps.
He does, yeah, I saw that.
And then, of course, you've got the masks, which are the core concept of the gameplay. You've got 5 transformation masks: the Deku Scrub, the Goron, the Zora, the Giant's Mask, and then the Fierce Deity.
Yes.
So the last 2 you can only use in very specific circumstances, but they still do add a lot to like the changing of the game, and like it gives you a very neat sense of like playing as a different-ish character, especially in the 3DS, because the Giant's Mask you now just use your hands and like punch shit, which was interesting.
Oh, instead of using you don't use your sword in the 3DS version? Oh.
Yeah, you turn into a brawler, just punch shit.
That battle looked really fun, I'll say.
We'll get to that later, but anyway, so then there's a bunch of other masks that help you do various things. Like there is the bomb mask, so you can just blow yourself up.
You only take 1 heart of damage.
Or if you shield it, you take none.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Right?
Yeah, because putting a shield in front of the bomb to keep it close to you will cause less damage.
The bunny hood mask
you can go
makes
fast.
you go faster. We talked about what is it called? The one that makes you invisible.
The
stone mask.
The stone
It's great
mask,
jiggle physics on the bunny hood ears, too.
Yeah. There's some good animations, like, in general, in this game, I think.
I forgot to look it up if it's in the original, but in the 3DS, when Link swims, oh my god, his little feet start going.
He doesn't just use his one arm, like in Ocarina of Time.
He swims the same way, but like you see his little feet, like he's kicking. He's trying to make them move.
In the N64 one, I noticed Mikau's legs, he does like a good butterfly kind of kick. I don't remember that from the 3DS version, but I could be wrong.
There's a couple of fun masks. The Brennan mask, the one that the marching band one, where you're just gonna start.
I really enjoyed that.
And then there's the
Follow me, chickens.
Kamara mask where you start dancing.
It's like, we'll call it a dance.
I mean,
Doesn't it kind of he undulates to a beat, right?
Yeah.
Depends on how you describe dancing. Yes.
Look, it worked. He picked up some ladies showing that off.
Yes, yes, he did. That mask looks so weird too. It's like no face, but something on top, like a little small face on top. Like it's fucked up. Although the most fucked up one is the all night mask. Let's be real.
Yeah. Which I mean, Link stays up the entire time, anyways. But except for when you need to use it.
Yeah.
Except for when you listen to granny stories. Just that bad.
Yeah. So there's a total of 24 masks. You collect them and all that. They're needed for various quests and side quests.
And you need all of them to give to the children in the moon.
If you want the Fierce
Deity.
Deity.
The Fierce Deity mask. Yes.
So, you need the other 20.
20.
I
think it's 20 that you give to the...
You give 20 to the kids.
Yeah.
You keep
You
can't give them the 3 transformation ones.
Yeah.
And then the last one you get the Fierce Deity mask.
Mm-hmm. For items, you've got a lot of the cores from Ocarina of Time, the Ocarina, the bow, light fire, ice arrows, bombs and bum shoes, stick nut, magic beans, lens of truth, and hook shot.
You don't get the long shot in this one.
I think it has the same length as the long shot.
Yeah, so
you
got
kind of
pretty good range.
It's pretty far.
Yeah.
The 3DS has like a little laser reticle.
Laser sight.
Yeah, laser sight for it, which is really nice.
N64 has a little dot.
Yeah, but this one is like, it has like a laser, it's like a red. So the thing like glows like bright red when you land on the target. And it has this kind of like glowing like beam that you can see when it's not touching, even when it's not touching something. Kind of like it's like similar to the style of like the divine beasts, like laser beams. It's like, yeah, so it has this like target beam that's always there. It's not just like the dot on the target, like in the N64 version. So it's fancy. You have the gilded sword.
Oh yeah. I mean, the equipment you have, you don't have the Master Sword. You start with the Kokori. You go to a Razor Sword and then a Gilded Sword.
Razor Sword's pretty cool looking. It should be the best one.
Yeah, I agree.
Like the Gilded Sword is like cool and all, but
yeah, I mean, if they just like colored the Razor Sword,
yeah, it should be like that, but gold or whatever. Like that one should be the gilded one. It's pretty badass.
Yeah, shields. You got the Hero Shield, which is a rebranding of the Hylian Shield.
Yeah,
at least in the. Let me see. What is the Majora's Mask one?
I think it's exactly the same.
It looks mildly different. It's got a slightly different pattern on it.
But they're definitely different than the Hylian Shield, but definitely a similar sort of base design. And then there's the Mirror Shield, which
is horrifying.
Yeah.
Why does everything have to have a screaming face in Majora's Mask?
Yeah, I made this joke in the chat, but it's like the Majora's Mask design philosophy is, but what if it was screaming in agony?
I was like, does it shine that back onto the wall? Oh, it definitely does.
The only new items are the powder keg, which does not make an appearance any further, and the pictograph, which you get in Wind Waker. Possibly, I don't remember if you get it in any of the 3DS games.
I mean, you get the camera in Breath of the Wild. It's not called a pictograph, but it's like the camera.
Yeah. Your iPhone
app. Yeah. Your Sheikah Slate. What are you talking about?
I feel like you might get the Picto Box in like Spirit Tracks or
I wouldn't be surprised. Something. It's the same world as Wind Waker, so maybe you do. I haven't played those, but we'll find out, won't we?
It's been a while since I played them, so I don't remember. But I feel like I remember some kind of.
It's just like if it's in Wind Waker, it makes sense to be in either of those because they're like the same world. I thought,
but yeah. So I mean, the biggest changes in gameplay are from the masks, and it's great. If you haven't played it, you should. Don't just listen to us.
Good endorsement.
Yeah.
You get different. I think the most interesting thing about the transformation masks is you get different attacks. Like you really do get to be like a different character when you use them. Like it's not just like oh, people in the game think you're a different person, but like you have different abilities. And
different
that's pretty
interactions
cool.
and things like that. Like the Deku Scrub can spin around, and I think for certain enemies, he just stuns them. He doesn't even hurt them.
The dog is like really not into Deku Scrub for some reason, but he's totally cool with Mikau's mask. I noticed in this playthrough, it was like WTF.
You can like talk to him with the Mask of Truth, the dog in the plaza, and he'd be like, "Where'd that Deku Scrub go? He just gets me all angry or something." It's really funny.
Really, that's amazing.
Yeah,
it's funny.
Yeah, you can talk to animals in this one. With,
I talked to the frog mask. I got the frog mask myself, and I was talking to the frogs.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have time to go get all of you, but I'm kind of like want to, but just not right now. I'll do it later. I'll play myself for myself and not feel the pressure, merely the pressure of the 3-day thing, but not the pressure to complete it for this show. But yeah, I was like, this is cool. I like talking to frogs. I was like, why are these conspicuous frogs everywhere?
Yeah.
When I started. There's like no other animals, and then there's like one frog in a dungeon. You're like, interesting.
Yeah. Oh, and then the last core part of the gameplay that we talked about is the 3-day cycle, right? Everything you do is basically timed, and if you waste too much time, you get to the end of the 3 days, and the moon lands.
Not gently.
No.
Yes, not gently. And then the people react differently depending on the day and the time. They go about their lives. It's very well fleshed out. Like, you don't... I mean, there are some people who their job is this, they're a shop owner and they're in the shop all day.
Yeah.
But even then, sometimes you've got, like, people who are involved in other things, and, like, most of the people aren't just like, oh, can you do this quest for me? Because, like, I just can't be bothered to go do this. Or, you know, I'm not good enough. And you just retrieve it to me and I'll give you something, right? Like, there's interactions between other people. You see the events that come, like, play out, and then they need your help. I think it's... I've always felt that Majora's Mask has been my favorite game. I think I was wavering a little bit not too long ago, but now that I've played it again, it's definitely up there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you at the end of this if you still felt that way. Yes.
And I think a huge part of it is that all the people are condensed into more or less into the clock town, and then you've got the other villages, but you don't really interact with them too much. But they're all involved with one another, right? They're doing different things throughout the day. It's not just you meet them, you get one quest from them, and that's what you know them for.
Right.
Some people you meet 3 or 4 times for different quests, or they're, you do a quest for them, but they're also involved, like, related to someone else, and, you kind of encounter them when you're doing someone else's quest, and things like that. And it's very lively, the town, which is something that I feel like I don't get in any of the other ones, because they're just always doing the same things. They don't move around. They're in their spot, just doing their script. Yeah. And I feel like with the 3 days, you get to see enough variety that they really do feel like real characters that are developed and all that.
I think that Windfall Island has a similar vibe in Wind Waker, though. Like, if you stay there, you go there later in the game and do all the side quests, there's all this, like, town, like, goss and drama, where it's like, you gotta follow this person around and take a photo of them, and this person does this thing at night, and they do this thing during the day, and if you make it day or night, you can see different things that they do. It's kind of, like, similar in concept, but I think that Majora's Mask is, like, more fleshed out over, like, how they react, and how NPCs react to the moon, even, like, when you get on the cart with, like, Cremie or whatever her name is, the older sister from the ranch, and she's like, does the moon look closer to you? And you're like, no. Yeah, like, or people are like, what's up with the moon? Or like, like things, and then if you're in the town at the end, you're talking to the guards, they're all like panicking, and they're like, it's totally fine, I'm totally fine. And then people are like, why didn't you leave yet anyway? Or like the bank person is like, haven't you evacuated anyway? You want to give me money or what? Which is
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones is the sword teacher. I don't know if you've talked to him throughout the day, but like I think on the 3rd day, the morning, he's like, people are saying that the moon's gonna crash. Well, even if it does, I'll slice it in half, whatever. And then if you go during either the last 12 or the last 6 hours, he's cowering behind, like, in a hidden room in his shop. Like, I don't want to die. Like, this is terrifying. Just shaking. And, like, it's just one of those where, I don't know, just very, I don't know.
It definitely adds to the whole existential, like, vibe of the game, and, like, the Groundhog Day sort of, like, nature of the game. And by Groundhog Day, I'm referring to the movie Groundhog Day, for people who don't know.
Yes.
But I think everybody knows. But maybe you don't. Which is this movie in which the main character has to repeat the Groundhog Day every time, helping people and whatever, and different things happen depending on what he does. But yeah, like, having all those different interactions with all those NPCs. Also, like, you also, they become, like, because, like, obviously a thematic aspect is, like, wearing a public face and being a different person, right? And so when you have NPCs that are also doing the same thing, where they're like, everything's fine, like, sometimes they change and sometimes they don't, right? Like, sometimes that's really who they are or really what they think, but then sometimes they completely turn around at the end of the 3 days and they're, like, freaked out or whatever. I think that adds to the experience of playing it, and also, like, it adds to the game thematically.
One little moment I found surprisingly touching that I didn't really notice in a previous playthrough, I guess, is like the way it's sort of part of the Anjou and Cafe quest, which is like the really long, involved side quest, kind of I feel like probably the most iconic one in this game. So Cafe is the son of the mayor and the mayor's wife, and he'll give you a letter for his mother before he runs off to try and get his mask back. And you can either deliver that directly to the mother yourself, or you can give it to the postman, who is having an existential crisis on the last day because he, like, lives and dies by his schedule, and he wants to flee, but there's still delivery scheduled, and but you give him the letter, it kind of gives him something to do. He's like, oh, this is priority mail, I gotta go do this. And so he goes and delivers it to the mother, who's apparently also the postmistress of the town, and so it's like his boss. And she's just kind of like drowning her sorrows in the bar, like, whatever, everyone else should flee, I'll just stay here. It's like when the postman comes in, she's like, oh my, you haven't fled yet? And he's like, it's priority mail. And she's like happy to get this, like, letter from her son. She's like, oh, it's so nice that something good would come in the last moment. And then she's like, and now you need to flee town. It's like, that's an order. And so it gives him his, like, scheduled freedom to leave.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's like, oh, that was sweet.
There's a lot of nice things that happen. Like you
That's what I
free
was gonna say.
the monkey, like even in the main quest, like you free the monkey when you bring the Deku princess back. Yeah, I feel like Mikau's death is unresolved, but whatever.
One of my other favorites is the mummy mask.
Oh yes,
Like it's a very touching little interaction.
yeah. The daughter like stops you the first time, and then you
Yeah.
have to go back.
And play the song of healing, and she comforts him, saying, oh, it was just a bad dream, nothing happened. I don't know. It's very. I think I cried when replaying the game, like I guess back in 2015. It's very touching.
I didn't cry, but I got pretty emotional at the end when it goes a dawn of a new day.
I know.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful way to put that there.
Yeah, after getting all those like really dramatic, ominous, like dawn of the final day and
72
stuff.
hours remain. Yeah, dawn of the first day. And you do it over and over again. And you're very much in control of that. And like it's like you're I don't know, it's kind of funny. Like you're in control of it, but also like you're sort of at the timer's running
you're
down.
beholden to it.
Yes,
Yup.
but it's both at the same time where it's like you're beholden to it. The timer's running down, but like also you can be like, well, I'm just going to restart to a more comfortable time to do these different tasks or whatever. So like you also have that flexibility where you can control it, which I felt like I had to strategically decide like, okay, now I know that I've done, because this game had a very similar structure to Ocarina of Time in that like you have to do a task before you can go in the temple or like the dungeon basically. You have to do it. You do some kind of task to get the mask to go into the dungeon. And so you'd be like, okay, I've like done the task, so I should restart and drop off all my money and everything so that I can go back and like have the full time to do the dungeon. So I would like strategically plan when I was going to do the dungeon by restarting the clock and stuff like that, which I think is the intent of the game. But
Yeah, because they've got the warp right outside of each of the dungeons once you kind of get to the point where you can open them. And so it definitely wants you to. It's like hint, hint. Now's a good time to restart.
It's a good time to save now. Yeah, you do the quest, and I think I don't know. I guess like now. So this is like the 6th game that we've played. This is our 5th episode. But it's the 6th Zelda game we've played. So now we've been like conditioned. Yeah, I know. We've been conditioned to play or like to that in this way where it's like, okay, I know, especially after Ocarina of Time, like I'm gonna do a task, and then once I get access to the dungeon, I'm gonna have to do the dungeon before I can do something else. Or like, you enter the dungeon, and then this time, like, there's not going to be a save point. You can't just save randomly in the dungeon. So like, you have to do all of it. There's like there's like strategy. Like you can strategize when you're going to restart the 3 days, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And you have to, like, that's part of the gameplay, strategizing when you're going to restart. Or what you're going to do in the 3 days. So like, if like, for example, I got to the fucking, the beach, like the walls, and then I realized that you have to get Epona, and I was like, I don't want to get Epona because we talked about this last time where it's not, I just don't care about horseback riding, but you have to go and do that quest so that you can get to the Great Bay. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to spend 3 days doing those side quests and like whatever things that I want to do before I go back. So, for example, because I'm a fuddy-duddy and I hate horseback riding.
I do feel
like other games.
Like, she's still not a big part of the game, but I do feel more bonded to Epona in this game.
Epona got taken away.
It starts off with her getting taken away from you, and
you get a reunition. You get a reunion scene.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I was like, what is the word I'm trying to say? Yeah, you get a whole reunion scene. It's not that I don't like Epona. I like Epona as a character. I just don't like horseback riding. Like, I like Link and Epona. I don't want to have to horseback ride for as much as I possibly can avoid it, which is very like an un-Zelda thing to do, but whatever. But yeah, you get Epona back, and then you get to do the like test run for the aliens, and then you can call Epona using Epona's song for the rest of the game.
I like her more in bigger games because I really like riding a horse around like a big open space. So like whenever there's like in Breath of the Wild,
love Breath of the Wild,
yeah. Even like there's so many fast travel points in Breath of the Wild, but a lot of times I'll just get on a horse and just go from point A to point B to see what I find on the way.
Breath of the Wild has good horseback riding music. I really like the music when you're on the horse in Breath of the Wild. I still
Breath of the Wild
avoid
has
it.
really good horse animation, which is difficult to do, but that's
Yes.
not relevant to.
Apparently, for this
Majora's
game,
Mask.
for Majora's Mask, they said they wanted to bring a horse into the studio so that they could I think it was a horse, yeah, so that they could better animate it or whatever. And they were like, no.
Yeah.
They were like, and
sense.
so we settled for a plank between two chairs or two stools or whatever. It's like, yeah. I just thought that was really funny. We're doing it. Another story that I read that I think it was the Ocarina of Time team was super excited to figure out opening the chest animation, which was a big deal. And they decided that they have to you have to kick the hinge or kick the lock before you can open it. And they didn't want to use motion capture, but they used motion capture for opening the box, which I guess is a complicated animation and stuff like that. So anyway, it's just funny. So figuring out how to open a chest in 3D is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a couple of fun moments in this game where I beat the mini boss and ended up right on top of where the chest spawns, so it's spotted underneath me, and Link's looking down under his feet as it appears.
That's nice. I feel like we didn't talk enough last time about how great Z targeting is and how wonderful and revolutionary it was.
Yes.
I don't remember what we said about it. I'm sure we talked about it, but I just don't feel like we talked about it enough. And how I've taken it so for granted, basically, that you can Z target and that the camera motion is in a circle around you. It's very interesting. I just want to call it out again. I mean, you can Z target for the rest of the 3D console Zelda games, but respect to the to Z targeting. I'm just gonna throw it out there again. It's good. So many things. I feel like it's influenced so many games as well. Zelda wouldn't be Zelda if you couldn't Z target. Can you imagine trying to fight all those bosses and try to adjust the camera angle? I can't. How would you fight an Iron Knuckle? I can't even.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I was about to say the Z-targeting makes the game easier, but there's a lot of not controversy, but some people were very turned off by the 3D system in Majora's Mask.
Yeah, it's definitely stressful. It definitely adds some complication, especially to your first playthrough. If you don't know what you're doing, you have a time limit. You have to figure things out. You also especially with the N64, because with one of the differences with the 3DS is you can skip to a very specific to any hour.
Yes.
So when you had to go through you could only skip by 6 hours.
Yeah, you can go to the night or the.
Or was it, every 12 hours.
I think it's 12 hours. I think you can go to the day
it's every
or the
12
night.
hours.
Yeah.
So sometimes if there's something that you need to do, you just wait. So that kind of sucks. So
there's a lot of that in the Anjun Cafe quest, which is a great quest. I don't know if I guess we should explicitly say it's where you reunite the two young lovers and they get married and decide to die together. I mean,
yay.
yeah, but it's a long involved quest across all 3 days, and it involves a lot of characters all over the town and everything. But there's a lot in the N64 version. There's a lot of times where I was just scrolling through my phone waiting for the time to tick by.
You turn on the Song of Double Time and you're just all right, here we go.
Well,
Song of Double Time only goes right.
Yeah,
yes.
so you just don't invert time. So,
so if you get, you can go to the start of the day, but if you got to wait for 1 p.m. for someone to show up, you're just
because you wouldn't want to miss it, because then you have to go all the way back to the first day and do it again, which would be a pain. Yeah.
So I definitely, especially with the N64, I definitely see the criticism there. But I mean, with the 3DS, it's fine.
I think it's been sort of it's kind of the game has a very strong duality, and so do the kind of reviews, right? Where it's it's a great and innovative game, but it is challenging. And so some people felt the downside is that it's less accessible than Ocarina of Time, which I think I would agree with. Yeah. You can take your time. You can take as long as you want in Ocarina of Time. You can save. You can go through the dungeons slowly. You can mess up and try different things over and over again. When you play, and I think the dungeons, in my opinion, playing again as an adult, having played many. Now we've played through all of the extant Zelda games that would have existed at the time, and we've played beyond, so like we know about other things, like from like the flower spitting you out, the like Deku flowers, that comes back in like Wind Waker. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, I know what this is already. So like
I kept expecting my magic power to charge.
Oh yeah, I know. How rude. I know. And it spins around. I think you can still kind of like adjust the camera. But yeah, so because we have those clues and we played the game, even though I hadn't played Majora's Mask specifically, like I knew what to anticipate. And I think the dungeons were like I purposely restarted the days for the first time I did it, not knowing what would happen. But I could have just gone and fought the boss. Like, I had probably enough time. It would have been very, very tight. Maybe I could have done it. But like, I think that the intent with Majora's Mask was that it was supposed to be a more challenging game. And I don't feel like it's impossible. But that's just my opinion. And I'm not a very good gamer in general. I'm not very good at video games. But I've played a lot of Zelda games, so I think that helps. If this was the first Zelda game you ever played, I could see it being very difficult to understand.
Well, but I mean, I guess if you think about it, the only similar game was Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Because that was, and so I see it. And, like, I find the dungeons a little more stressful, especially the Snowhead and the Great Bay.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more, like, I feel like the design is a lot more complex. But that also makes it a little more, like, it's more challenging, but that also means that it's easier to get lost.
Yeah.
And you're on a time limit, so if you're trying to find all the great fairies and you didn't start over from the very beginning, like, there was, I think the Great Bay Temple in particular, and the Stone Tower, I did not get all the great fairies in time to beat the boss for Great Bay, and then I didn't get enough fairies, and I couldn't beat the boss in Stone Tower, so I had to do that whole dungeon basically all over again.
Stone Tower,
with the exception of that I had light arrows from the beginning, but like that still was like a long and an arduous process, and the fact that like you had to start over, you had to collect all the keys, you had to collect all the fairies, you had to beat all the mini bosses, get to the boss. It's a process.
Stone Tower seems to have a lot of mini bosses. It has more than the other dungeons. And it has the really interesting but challenging mechanic of flipping upside down.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It was really cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
I saw again. I watched a playthrough.
Yeah, I think
the
Stone Tower
button
Temple is like a top Zelda dungeon in like the whole series.
I saw the button on the ceiling and I was like, I bet this is going to flip over later, and it definitely did, and I was not disappointed. Do you think that this water temple was harder or easier than the water temple from Ocarina of Time?
I found it challenging, specifically to get all the fairies. It's definitely a little more maze-like, because you go through the little pipes and all that, but... Like, I remember, I think playing it when I was younger, I definitely found it more challenging. So I don't know. I'm mixed.
I think just like Tattle is a direct response to criticism of Navi. I think Great Bay Temple is a direct response to criticism of the Water Temple, because it's got a lot better signposting. I think of there's a lot of like the pipes are color coded, and there's like little like direction arrows,
kind of arrows
which way you need to go into
wall.
things and stuff.
Yes.
I remember liking it a lot when I played it on the 3DS version, but it is terrible on the N64 because Zora Link has terrible swimming controls. Holy shit.
They're not super easy on the 3DS, so I can't imagine if it's that much harder on N64. That sounds
the problem is you're either going up, going down, or going forward very fast. Like you can't just hover in this place. Yeah. And so if you need to like line yourself up to enter a certain area, it is almost impossible.
I definitely struggled with
those
that
rooms where the water
too.
is like spinning around and you need to go into the certain doors. I would just get stuck there for like minutes at a time because I could not get myself on the right level and facing the right direction by the time the water swung me around, because I'm going up or down, or slamming myself into the wall trying to go forward. It was awful.
Right.
Were the controls for that A goes up, B goes down?
And it's like you press it.
Spin R. Do you have, his like spinning?
Well, it's like, it wasn't really, it was either like, you start off floating on the top. Yeah. And you press B and you'll sink down. You can't move yourself at all when you're sinking. You just go straight down.
You just go straight
you can't
down.
angle yourself or anything. If you press A, you'll start swimming. But if you just like tap it, you'll just start rising. Like you'll do the little animation to start swimming forward. But if you just tap it, you'll start going upward.
Yeah.
But there's no way to just kind of hover in one like elevation.
Yeah. The Z elevation is challenging. Yeah, it is. I think the 3DS is better. It was still not. I struggled to get used to it, but it's overall better. But it was still a bit challenging. I did like.
Yeah, there's a lot more fine control of available to you in the 3DS version.
Yeah.
The one issue I had with the 3DS is in N64, if you didn't have magic, you could still swim pretty fast. In 3DS, you had to just keep you do the little flip and dash, and then it stops, and you have to do that again. Whereas I think in N64, you just keep going, you just don't have the magic around you. So, like, for example, I had several times I had to go into the Pirate Fortress or something like that. I was swimming in Great Bay, but I'd run out of magic very fast, and then I had to just slowly just dash and dash and dash rather than being able to just keep going pretty quickly. And there isn't very much magic drop in the water, so it's not like you have like a path that you can take to help keep you going.
Yeah, they provided that a lot for like when you're in the Goron mask tasks. Like there was always pots around that you could break.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think just swimming involved the magic at all in N64. Like you press another button to do your little shield thing, but
yeah.
Unrelated question: do you think that there are more side quests in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time?
I want to say yes, because I feel like a lot of the masks there are side quests to get the mask, which is just needed to get a side quest to get an item, like a heart piece or something.
Yeah.
I want to say, and then you still have the heart pieces as side quests. I want to say that the answer is yes.
Yeah, they're definitely more varied and involved, so I'm not sure if that just makes it feel like there's more, if there are more.
That was kind of my take, is like, I don't know if there are actually more, or if it's just like, it's desirable to do them, first of all, so that you get all the masks to get the Fierce Deity mask. But yeah, and they take place over extended, like you have to do the full 3 days to do a quest often, I think, to get a mask, or to use it.
Yep.
So like there's also sort of like time pressure that like makes it seem like it's more involved or whatever too.
And a lot of them are like little storylines on their own rather than just like bring this to this place or whatever. Like
buy a mask from a guy, bring it to another person, and then he gives you
like
something.
Talking about the like at Romani Ranch, it's like first you have to do all the Goron stuff so that you can buy the big bomb to open it on the first day,
and then you have to roll it out of the
you go there.
then
you go there and you get your horse, and then you help Romani defend against the aliens, and then once you do that, you help Cremia defend the
milk cart,
like milk jugs, and like you learn about like these characters as you're doing that. Like you learn about like like how worried Cremia is about keeping her little sister safe, and then like she's connected to Anju because she talks about like Anju's her best friend.
She's getting married.
It's like and is getting married, and is like worrying about her friends in town and stuff. So. And then that's kind of connected to the Gorman brothers. They have their own little side quests and stuff. So it's like all these, they're all like kind of their own storylines and like interconnected and stuff.
It definitely improved, I guess, but expanded on the idea from Link's Awakening of having this like town of people who are all sort of like interconnected, and you're like stepping into their story that they're already living, basically.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of Link to the Past. Oh my god.
No, Link to the Past is like all the dungeons in the Dark World, and then you gotta go in the Dark World, and there's like 20 bajillion dungeons, and then...
It's like the one with Mambo's Mambo.
The greatest one. So, like, the greatest, like, handheld game that we've played so far, I think. I enjoyed that one. Out of all the, like, the pre-3D... out of all the 2D ones, that was the one I enjoyed the most. It was weird and like funny. Like Ocarina of Time is like that, but really fucking dark. It's just like it's like a similar concept. It's like you have the dungeons, but it's similar to. It has like many similar aspects, but it's a lot darker than the what's it called? Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about? Wait, are there other play things, or do you want to talk about speedruns?
Well, yeah, I'm going to talk about speedruns and glitches.
Do it.
So, interestingly, by the way, I don't know if I've mentioned this. I get most of my information from Games Done Quick, They're a group that does speedruns. Usually they do like a 24-hour stream where they donate, like they raise money for charity. And it's, I think, geared to a much wider audience than like just people speedrunning to just speedrun. Because like it's meant to be more entertaining. The focus is on fundraising, so they're not as hardcore necessarily. I mean, sometimes it's the same people that are, but they're trying to put on more of a show. So whereas if you're watching someone like just streaming trying to do a speed run, they'll start and then be like, nope, that's bad, I'm starting all over. Whereas they typically will power through it and just be like, well, that's just what happened is I got bad RNG, or I fucked this up and I got to take 2 extra minutes. But they also do a very good job of explaining what they're doing all the time.
Yeah, a lot of them have like another person like on the couch with them who's like explaining what they're doing and stuff, so that the player can focus and stuff, which is cool.
So if you like the speedrunning and you haven't heard of Games Done Quick, or I don't know if they used to be Awesome Games Done Quick, or if Awesome Games Done Quick is like the event.
I think Awesome Games Done Quick is their like winter event, and Summer Games Done Quick is their summer event.
Oh, okay. Because I think I just hear them like say GDQ, Games Done Quick, and so I don't know if it was like a rebranding or anything like that. But anyways, there's them, and then Summoning Salt is a YouTuber who does a history of particular speedruns, glitches, levels. I mean, he does a very good job of giving you like the history of in great detail about different runs and categories of runs and things like that. So I would give them a look if you haven't.
Cool.
So the speedrun I watched was I think from 2019, and one of the interesting things that they talked about is that oftentimes you use the Japanese version because the text comes by quicker because there's just less characters to load because of just how Japanese is done. But there's some pretty big differences between the two versions, between the English and the Japanese. One of the big ones is, for one of the glitches, you can move really fast, but if you fall off, like if you go up against an edge, you'll fall off. Whereas in the English version, you won't, and so you'll keep like going that direction, but won't fall off, and then you can change your direction to keep going.
What? Where would that be? Where they would have like added that in the? That's crazy.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how that difference comes about.
I mean, probably somebody just like playtesting it in English was like, "That's dumb," and then they fixed it or whatever in that version.
Maybe
I
don't know if it's maybe because they have to change things to English if it changes because I know like for a lot of games they kind of really put it to the max. Like they used every bit of space that they had.
Yes.
For some of these early games, so it could be while coming through from Japanese to English, the file size was different enough that they're like, "Fuck, we need to cut corners somewhere else even more." Maybe that, or maybe just something about making a change just like altered the code in such a way. I don't know, but so there's a few things that are different between the two, but now because of that glitch, people are typically using the English version for the any percent category at least.
Interesting.
And the requirements for that is you got to get all 4 masks and then get to Majora.
Okay.
So they have a lot of similar glitches to Ocarina of Time, which makes sense because it's based off of Ocarina's engine.
Right.
So there's the infinite sword glitch where if you interact with something the same frame that you crouch stab, the game just forgets to put your sword... Well, it puts your sword away, but while you have the hitbox out, and it doesn't get rid of that hitbox. The interesting thing is in Ocarina of Time, that's used a lot for battling. Especially because in Ocarina of Time, if you crouch stab, it uses the strength of the last attack you did, which the Japanese version of Majora's Mask does. But the English version doesn't. So I don't know where that came about. Like again, I don't know how that change in the code happened, but it just did. So they didn't do it much for combat, but what they did that for is usually if you mix it with a bomb, you can flip and block a bomb, and because it thinks you're still swinging a sword, the game's like, well, you're swinging a sword, so you have to be on the ground. So it keeps you up in the air, and you just flip and drop a bomb, and you can kind of just keep rising bit by bit, and you can get over walls and things like that you're not supposed to.
Right.
So that was the one of the biggest cores to the speedrun. Oh, another thing that they mentioned is that if you mistime it, you have a chance of crashing your game.
Exciting.
Which means that you have to start the 3-day cycle from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because they played the N64. So the 3DS, if you save at an owl statue, you die, you crash, something, you come back at the owl statue.
Right.
N64, it doesn't go that way.
Right.
So yes, flipping with the bombs, which is something that you could do in Ocarina of Time with the hover boots in a similar process. It's just you go about it through a different approach in this game, which is interesting. The other one is a super slide, or what they call a hyperextended super slide.
Hyper-extended super slide.
Yes. So basically you roll and then try and pick up a bomb and block it at the same time while holding backwards, and you just move really fast backwards.
Okay.
That's the super slide. The hyperextended is you do the same thing, but the setup, the controls is a bit different, and then you can Z target to keep changing your angling, so you can move around essentially in a circle if the field is big enough, or so the biggest time they used that was to get to Snowhead. They didn't get the lullaby. They did the super slide, and because they didn't fall off a wall, they would be blown in a direction and hit the edge, but stop moving because they're in this animation. And then when the blowing stops, they keep moving in the direction they need to. And, it takes some time.
Go around the sleeping Goron.
Kind of. Because, there's that little bridge that goes... that it's not a straight bridge. And because of that, they can, position themselves so when they get blown to an edge, which they won't be jumped off of. And then they just keep going. And then make sure that they're positioned for the next blow. And then you use that to climb all the way up without getting hit by the boulders, and you make it into the dungeon.
Nice.
They use it a couple times.
I always love when you talk about this, and it's like, yeah, you hit these two things and block at the same time and jump backwards and press Z, and then you're good to go. And I'm always like, all right. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I do. Yes.
Then there is another glitch that's really interesting. In West Clock Town.
Okay.
You after the load zone to go back into South Clock Town, it has the same initial structure with the clock tower and the little the wooden structure with the owl on it. If you skip that loading zone, you go over the wall, don't hit it, and land in that area, that is a real owl that is in the game, and is different from the one in South Clock Town.
What?
So if you activate that one, it fucks up the system. And they didn't explain it this way, but I'm pretty sure this is what happens, is you have activated... They're like, okay, you activated Owl 1... and then you activate this one, and it thinks that you activated Owl 0, let's say.
Yeah. And
so now, every time you try and teleport to an owl, it'll take you to the next one in the system.
Oh.
And so now you can start teleporting to areas that you haven't been yet. It'll just take you there. And then once you're there...
Yeah, you can activate the owl, and then you can teleport to the next one.
It actually activates the owl for you. When you teleport there, because if you're teleported there, obviously it's activated, right? So which they said that if they actually activated an owl manually, it would have screwed up the system, and that owl would have been deactivated, basically, or something like that. So, but you just teleport in order, and you just keep going where you need to go. And so that's really helpful because you get to skip a lot of things, especially getting up to Stone Tower. You don't have to do that whole thing. You just teleport there from the get-go.
Right, you don't have to do the beginning part. You teleport to... Because the owl is basically kind of in the middle. I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's partway through. You have to do a bunch of crap to get to the owls. Yeah, in Stone Tower.
Yeah. It's pretty much right at the end. You just have to do one set of the moving the little blocks to make that bridge. That's about it. Which they also don't even do, because there's another glitch where if you if you enter a cutscene at the same time you enter a cutscene.
Wait, you enter a cutscene the same time you enter a cutscene?
Yeah. So, but basically, what they did is they would bring out the ocarina the same time they hit the button. So you're in the ocarina animation, and then you get out of it, and you can move during the animation where the blocks are moving. And what that does for you is you jump on it, and you don't even have to play the Eulogy of Emptiness to like make copies of yourself and do the whole puzzle to get that last part of getting into the Stone Tower. You're just in there. Yep.
So fancy.
Right. And then the rest of the glitches involve... So they only got 2 masks.
Okay.
The Deku mask and the Zora mask. They skipped the Goron. I'm not going to list the rest. They skipped the rest. But they especially skipped the Goron. And what... Because I told you that they don't need the lullaby to get into the Stone Tower. Right. And for all the dungeons, they basically need to get the core item in the dungeon, except the ice arrows you don't need.
I think you need everything else, though, at the end.
Yeah. Yep. And the light arrows you only really need for to flip the Stone Tower.
Yes.
So you barely even need that. But yeah, so you don't need the ice arrows. But for every dungeon you get the core item and then the boss, and that's it. So, one of the interesting things is no matter where you are in the dungeon, the boss zone is always loaded. So if you glitch through the walls and find your way up or down to the boss entrance, you enter, especially if you go out of bounds so there's not a door in your way, you just enter and you fight the boss. So there's a lot of you just glitch through the wall and make your way to where you need to go. The most common way of changing your elevation is with bombs. And so bombs are very important. There's a glitch that you can do in Ocarina of Time and in this game where you're able to override one item with the other. If, while you're using an item, you change the C-stick, the button equipped with something else, it will think that is the item that's supposed to be there. So if you put bomb shoes in, let's say, a bottle slot, it's now going to think, okay, well...
every time you use a bottle that you're using a bomb shoe?
Oh, no, I think it's the opposite. So basically what it is that when the game you reset time, the game looks in the bomb shoe slot and sees that, oh, hey, there's nothing there for me to erase. We're good.
Oh, so you get to keep them.
So you get to keep them.
That's convenient.
And then you can also do that with bottles to make sure that you have enough. So you do that with the Zora eggs. So you can't get one egg, and then you just keep duplicating it. And then you just keep dropping the same egg over and over again until you get it.
Until they teach you the song that they were born to teach you.
Yes. And then the last glitch is if you play the Song of Time and go out of bounds at the same time, the game is like, oh, you played the Song of Time, but we didn't have a chance to ask you, do you want to reset? So the next time text appears, it's going to be, do you want to reset? So you do that before you fight the boss. You beat the boss, and then you grab the item, the mask, and you can reset time, and you skip all the giants. Except for the first one, which you need to teach you the song.
Oh, I see. So you can skip the cutscenes of
you skip the cutscenes,
and then the area becoming refreshed.
Yup.
Yeah. Smart. That takes a lot of time. The giant scenes are very long. Yeah. They talk very slowly.
Mm-hmm. They talk letter by letter.
Yeah.
And then the last glitch is one of my favorites. It does not actually help you in a speedrun, and then in fact it will ruin any speedrun that you try to do it. But in the N64, one of my favorite things to do when I was just bored, waiting for time to end, is go to Termina Field, turn into a Zora, shoot your little boomerang flippers out, turn to a kid, get on Epona, and run away from them. Oh, because the flippers will try and come back to you.
But you cannot run them.
You cannot run them. Yeah.
Nice, that's funny.
Yeah, I think you can't do that in the 3DS. I think if you switch, the flippers
they probably just disappear. But
yeah,
how depressing.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So that's the majority of the speed run techniques.
What's the time? The fastest time?
Yeah, I have. Is this? Here's the
Find
time.
the tab.
All right. So in order to beat the game at all, just any percent is an hour and 15 minutes and 26 seconds. Done by Pope Squidward. He's the guy who did the run that I saw.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And that was 6 months ago. So
fresh
recent.
time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But yeah, they were talking about how they were getting close to about 1:15 in the speed run.
Nice.
So to get it 100% is 4 hours and 35 minutes and 30 seconds by Nope 1112.
Nope.
Yep. Oh, okay, that's no major. There's glitchless. Aha. And unrestricted. Okay, so if you want to beat the game anyway with huge glitches, you can do it in 18 minutes and 29 seconds.
Ooh.
Yep.
Less than 20 minutes. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, yes, there was one more glitch. Sorry. In all the other Zelda games, except maybe Link's Awakening, it might be the only one where they didn't... No, I think they did... Well, in every other one, they had basically two separate maps, right? The overworld map and the dungeon map.
Yeah.
Where, although you're in one dungeon, if you glitch through the walls, you can transition over to another dungeon.
Right.
Because they're all just in the same area. Mm-hmm. In Ocarina of Time and in Majora's Mask, that's the grottos. So just the little holes in the ground that you'd fall into.
Oh, okay.
So one of the only time it was really used was to get from Termina Field into the hole where I think it's the Bean Salesman is at. Or they said that it's a hole that's in the Japanese version, but not the English version. But it's just been patched up. It's been like poured in with concrete. But that area is still low in the map.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you hop up there, and it takes you to the very end of the Deku Palace, right underneath the little floating platform with the flower that you jump into, and that's the last one you need to get to the monkey to get the song.
I see.
So you use the flip and with the bombs to levitate, and you get up there, and bam, you're done. So you use that once, but it's another notable glitch through the game.
Yeah, you don't have to do all of that. Sneaking, flying, etc.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. And then there's version differences. So the two big different versions are the N64 version and the 3DS version. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of small quality of life changes. Like we talked about the reticle for the hookshot. The time is now just a bar rather than a clock, which I don't like as much, but also on a smaller screen, you kind of need that space, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it also is clear like what time it is. Like
that is true. It's very clear, but I do like the design on the original.
It's cool,
but I understand that functionally it's not as good. Mm-hmm. And then other things that have like reticles and stuff like that, like the blowing your bubble, I think shoots a lot more straight, whereas in the N64 it would like whiz around in like a circle. So even if you were pointed directly at something, you'd sort of miss sometimes just depending on the distance. We talked about some of the changes to like swimming.
Yeah.
Time manipulation is a big one, right? The Song of Double Time, you can now choose which hour you go to rather than each 12-hour increment. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge, huge difference.
Oh, yeah. One thing... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I just was reading this article also that has some differences. And one that I found really helpful was like in the 3DS, you can see the songs at the same time. So like, you can see them at the bottom of the save screen while you're playing the instrument. Mm-hmm. Like I used to actually know them when we played Ocarina of Time, but like I didn't remember any of the songs that I learned in Majora's Mask because you can just open that thing and like read it at the same time while you're playing it, which is nice because it has the two screens as opposed to like looking at the save screen and then playing the instrument, which was nice.
Because similarly, because you have the two screens, you always have your inventories down there, so it's much easier for you to swap items in and out just through a touch. And they give you 4 item slots instead of 3. Yeah. The worst change, I think, is the bosses. They've added each boss to have like a big eye that you attack, and that's how you end up beating them. And I found the last two bosses, Twin Mold and what's his name?
Gjord.
Yeah.
George.
I found those bottles,
Bottles.
boss battles to be much more difficult. And
They were more difficult.
yeah, Goat was okay.
Yeah, Goat was fine.
Goat was fine. And Oldwalla is fine. But yeah, especially those last two. Especially Twin... I don't know. Maybe I didn't know I was doing Twin Rover wrong. But it took me forever to beat him. And I feel like that I couldn't have been doing it the right way. One of the things I read or saw on the speedrun is that the Twin Molds, the red one is... I think it takes 10 arrows to knock them out. But if you do the ice arrow on the red one or the fire arrow on the blue one, you do triple damage. And so you only need to hit them like 3 times or something like that. So maybe... Because I kept trying to use the light arrows on them because like that's the item I got in the dungeon.
Right.
Obviously, that's the one I need to use.
That would make sense.
But also, in the 3DS, they do have a different kind of appearance, and they have those red gems, which maybe is an indicator. I don't know. It was frustrating. It was traumatic. Let's put it at that.
You describing how traumatic it was is like me playing every boss. So it took me so long. I had to do it multiple times, and it was so hard as every except for Goat. That was the only boss in any of the games that we played so far, probably, where I just like was able to do it the first time without like it wasn't that hard, and I didn't like nearly die, like nearly completely die multiple times. So
I love that Goat's name is Goat.
I know it's a goat, and its name is Goat. I mean, it's kind of like a bull. I also love that all the like main bosses are like bull with mask, fish with mask, like whatever. It's really funny. I enjoyed that.
Fishing. There's now fishing holes where you can collect fish.
Very important.
Yeah, not really necessary to 100% the game. There aren't really anything that you get from it other than bragging rights of completing it. Like, there's no heart pieces or any in-game benefits to doing it. A nice little Easter egg is that you can equip the Fierce Deity mask while you're in the fishing areas, in addition to the normal boss zones when you're allowed to use it. It's cool.
So you can like stab the fish or something, like with.
I think just to be able to use it more to see the design.
It to be cool.
Sort of
yeah, it is cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a very.
It's cool
very
when you don't get to use
pleasing.
it basically, and
yeah. Until you've already beat the game, still can be fun. One of my favorites was actually not using the Fierce Deity, but later on you get the Chateau de Romani or whatever, the magic milk.
Yeah.
And that gives you infinite magic. And then you can go fight Goat, and you don't even have to worry about magic. You just go around in circles and not even fight him. You just keep rolling,
nice.
like Ludacris is always advocated for.
Good. A reference that everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. A reference for all. Yes.
More quality of life changes. The Bomber Notebook has been a little updated. They have the they give you hints on things that they're like, oh, I heard a rumor that this, and they'll give you an entry that you don't have in your notebook yet.
Is the like Sheikah the gossip stone that you can crawl inside? That was new. Okay.
Yeah, and that gives you hints on
that was very trippy.
More of the heart pieces and the fairies.
Yeah,
so the other collectibles that aren't in the Bomber's Notebook. The banker has moved to South Clock Town right by the owl statue, so you don't have to really travel very far to deposit your rubies.
Oh yeah, and it was like the beggar that became the banker, which is also funny from Ocarina of Time.
Yep.
I don't know what happened if you interacted with that NPC in Ocarina of Time.
I think he'd give you rubies for.
He's just like, give me something, and I tried to give him something. I can't remember what it was, and he was like, I don't want that or whatever. And I was like, all right, well.
I think it had to be a bottle item.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
I like that the implication is that the banker just writes how much money you have on your forehead.
Yes.
That's how you're able to.
Did you say tattoos?
No rights.
Yeah, because it's like it's permanent. That like
he can also
isn't erased even through time.
He isn't erased through time.
He says.
And also like. If you're, I assume the implication was like you can't be wearing a mask when you talk to the banker because everybody else just thinks you're a different person. But the banker's like, "Hey, it's you, Link," even when you're wearing the Zora mask or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think they write like Link 300 rupees on your forehead.
It's like, let me look at you.
Yeah, you're definitely scamming the poor banker.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, yeah, I definitely have 3,000 rupees in the bank. Give it to me.
He's like, all right. You look trustworthy. Your face looks trustworthy. I recognize you.
Yeah.
Even though you're wearing a mask where nobody else seems to recognize you.
Let's see. Other owl changed in the southern swamp. There's one that's normally like up by a waterfall. It's now by the entrance by the fisher, the photo contest.
Tingle's
fishing.
Tingle's
Yeah, that's the one. Yep, and those are the big ones. Other ones that are just small, like they made a slight change to the Zora, not maze, but on the moon, the Zora trial.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, I think they moved from like a vertical layout to a horizontal layout, that sort of thing. Yeah, but those are the main ones.
Oh, I think there's that. Is that extra quest, or not quest? Extra side quest. Hold on, wait. The Windfish Ballad of the Windfish, is that?
Oh, is that extra? But that was a nice little Easter egg.
Yeah.
That they have the main band, the Indigo-Go's. Their main hit song is the Ballad of the Windfish.
Yes. Well, it's their predecessors. It's like the previous generation Indigo-Go's or Indigo's hit was the Ballad of the Windfish.
The previous singer was Lulu, who's the mother of the current singer, who's still named Lulu.
Shh, don't question it. This is the least questionable thing that happened in Majora's Mask, huh?
Is that because I know that like typically men will be named Charles III and things like that. Well, I guess
I mean you could name
women
a girl the same thing as the mom, but
I think it happens. People just don't do as much like the third or junior. Or
you don't usually get a
women.
Title.
Yeah.
Or what's it called? I don't know.
It's just
a suffix.
Mom goes by Liz, you go by Beth, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Or you just both go by Elizabeth or whatever. But yeah, I don't remember.
Side note: I really like the designs of the Zora band.
They were cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were all like unique Zoras, except for Lulu, who's
looks like
Princess
Ruto.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that the first time I played through, though. Something about her wearing a dress made her look
right.
completely different, I guess.
But I was like, well, she has that kind of hammerhead head, and she's the only one that has it. Mm-hmm. So but I was like, hey, it's Ruto. And they're like, it's Lulu.
Yeah, I really like the bass player who has like the long
bangs.
bang fins over his face.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like another Phantom of the Opera, the like lead guy, Evan, has that like big keyboard thing in his room. Mm-hmm. And there's a side quest where you can like make him think he came up with the song that like you and the bassist came up with or whatever, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not stealing any music. And I was like, are you sure? It's not what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Oh, and then, sorry, another difference is just graphical upgrades in general. Yeah. Some designs are slightly changed, like the mirror shield, the not Hylian shield. But overall, it's just mostly, you know, prettier.
The moon looks slightly different. I think it's mostly just been, like, tweaked. There wasn't anything that was, like, outright changed, like in the version of Ocarina of Time with, like, the star and moon symbol versus not and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they kind of, I feel like for both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask for the 3DS versions, they like made the colors like more vibrant, and like things were kind of like easier to see. Like the really obvious one was in Ocarina of Time in the water temple, where they made the like place where you play the song was like stood out a lot more than in the Nintendo 64 version, but I don't know. Majora's Mask looked like very similar to me in the playthroughs that I watched versus like what I played on the 3DS. Except for the moon, which obviously was like slightly different and horrifying both times.
Yep.
Seamless transition and talk about visuals, other visuals.
Let's do it.
All right. Starting with the exterior of the game, this game was also released on a gold cartridge, just like Ocarina of Time. I don't know if there was like more or less of them, but like I said, I acquired one randomly, so I guess they're out there.
Yeah, I think the gold stayed more consistent, but not necessarily the holographic part of the
label. Yeah.
The label, yeah. But I don't think I've ever really seen a white one.
Gray one. What's really impressive is that the holographic label thing is not damaged at all, and you would think that going in and out of a N64 would do that, but I guess it's fine. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was impressive. And of course we have the return of polygons because it's N64 times, and this is the last N64 Zelda game that we're going to talk about, so whatever. Polygons, they're great. We talked about how visuals and music worked on the N64 last time. I didn't do any specific research, but Majora's Mask requires you to use the expansion pack, which is a memory expansion pack. So I think there was some capability to have like more, not like storage, but to have more complicated things happen in the game, because I'm pretty sure the expansion pack is like a additional like RAM, yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. So you could probably have like more processes. I noticed that in the soundtrack, there were more songs in the soundtrack, I think, for Ocarina of Time than for Majora's Mask than for Ocarina of Time. There was a lot more like variability in the songs. So like I don't know about like the data or whatever. I didn't look into that, but it seemed like there were more, and it seemed like because there was added RAM, you could have some more complicated things. There were still parts of the game where you could tell that the N64 was struggling, especially the final scene with like the giants. Like that was rough, but it wasn't as rough as like some of the scenes in Ocarina of Time, like at the end where there's like just like white patches on the screen or whatever because Ganon's exploding or thing. I can't remember what exactly was happening, but I was like, this is rough on the hardware for like the last couple scenes.
My frame rate shuddered a bit inside the moon, but otherwise I didn't really notice too many drops.
One thing I don't know if this is just the 3DS version, but I think there would be times where like if enemies were kind of closing in, the overworld song would start like the volume would lower and the enemy song would start increasing a little bit, so you would hear a little bit of both at the same time.
Yes, I actually had that happen in this like weird glitch scene where like not a glitch, but I came out of the spring in the thing. I sent you guys a video.
Yeah, it was a swamp.
Yeah,
right?
It was right at the edge of the swamp it was like in in like Snowhead.
Spring on the mountain.
Yeah, it was spring on the mountain. But it was right next to the water, and there's like a bee, like there's a wasp enemy nearby. I finally figured out what it was. But yeah, it was playing like the general like field music and the enemy music at the same time, because it was like mid transition and I started a dialogue, and it was so bizarre. It was like the weirdest like experience. I don't know if that happened on the N64, but that happened to me on the 3DS, and it was pretty funny. But yeah, so there's more fade between them, at least on the 3DS.
The game looks notably better than Ocarina of Time. I don't know if that's anything to do with the expansion pack, or they just are better at making games, but...
I don't know, I think...
Like I stopped and admired a lot of like texture work and stuff. Like I was like, this looks great. Like
So Ocarina of Time came out 2 years before this, I think, because it was 98, I think. And this came out in 2000. So the thing is, like, they already had a lot of the engine. They had worked out things like we talked about last time, like the having different size textures for graphics and stuff like that. So I think there was like mechanical things about the graphics they'd already kind of figured out with Ocarina of Time, and probably subsequent games, because like Ocarina of Time was one of the early games for the N64 also. So when you factor all that in, several years later, you've got like advance in technology and like the kind of like like remember like when the Wii came out and the first like games that had like the control with the Wii remote were like crazy and like nobody really knew what they were doing, and it was very experimental. And then like a couple years later that technology kind of gets refined. I think it was the same with like visuals. So they probably like were able to refine better like what things would look good, because some of the textures in Ocarina of Time were like crazy playing it on the N64. I was like, what is this? What is happening? Yeah, it definitely, I mean, I played it on 3DS, or the 3DS, but the N64 version also looked substantially better. So I don't know what reason there was behind it, but I agree with you. I think there could have been a lot of technical reasons for why it was better.
Yeah, I know. Like, the Stone Tower Temple in Akana Valley really stuck out to me. There's a lot of, like they were going for, like, obviously, like, worn ancient stonework, and it looks really good. Like,
it looks really spooky
like the
there.
the entryway into the temple and everything on the, like, tongue thing.
Yeah.
Looks really good. So, like, there was a lot where I just, like, stopped and looked at it. I was like, that looks great.
Even, like the moon
this is blurry N64 on my giant TV, but...
Yeah, but from, like, 10 feet away, it's fine. Even the moon is, like, horrifying, but then you're, like, staring, like, you want to look at it. You're like, look at all that, like, there's, like, dimples on the moon, and the eyes are, like, kind of glowy, and the teeth are slightly different. Like, the teeth don't perfectly match and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of detail to be admired, even though it's horrifying. In general, I talked about how Ocarina of Time was just, like, dark. Like, I had to physically turn up the brightness on my TV multiple times. But, like, Ocarina of Time is... Or not Ocarina of Time. Majora's Mask is literally... It's, like, it's figuratively dark and literally dark, just like Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a lot of, like... I found, like, the mask transitions really disturbing.
Yeah.
For example, we even talked about that. We talked about how you use them and, like, control them, and that's great. But putting them on, I was like, man, I have to do it again. I have to do this again. And every time it's like, there's, like, the soulless, like, empty eyes, and the transition is like a scream. Like, it's not good. Like, it's not pleasant. Like, you have this, like, visceral reaction from Link of putting the mask on. And it is not good.
Yeah, like, it is obviously, like, physically painful to use these transformation masks. Physically and emotionally painful.
Yeah. And then I guess, like, he's physically transforming into these, like, different people, and they're different size and shape from him. So I guess that's, like, actually happening. I guess that's what's implied, but it's disturbing, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you can skip that cutscene, but sometimes I just watch it just because it's just, like, it's so, like, fascinatingly awful.
Yeah.
Like,
It's disturbing.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could skip it. I wish I knew that. When I play this again later myself, I'm going to figure out how to do that immediately, because fuck that.
Just press a
press
button,
A.
I'm pretty sure.
Just any button.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I have
Or
to
maybe
wade
it
through
might be
it.
A,
But yeah, I did
yeah.
it every time. Every time you go to change. And then at least there's, like, the fairy mask, you put that on, and it's like the fairies are also disturbing, but not as disturbing as everything else.
Yeah.
yeah, they're actually slightly less disturbing in this game than they were in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, they're not, like, trying to make you a man or whatever, like in Ocarina of Time. And Breath of the Wild, Breath of the Wild brings that back around in, like, the craziest possible way, but...
Oh, yeah, I remember the first time I got in the pool with the fairy in Breath of the Wild. I was like, well,
Some of them are
okay.
worse than others, too, because there's the one that,
Yes.
like...
Yeah, it, like, progresses. Like, one of them just gives you, like, a little kiss on
Yeah, and I was like, that's, like, kind of
yeah, that's
weird,
right.
but whatever.
It's like
Yeah.
blows you a kiss, basically. But then, like, the last one, like, grabs you and pulls you into the
And
pool.
then you're, like, kind of, like shiver after, you know what I mean? Like, there's, like, extended the scene after you get your armor upgraded or whatever, and it's like, I guess it's worth it, but it's kind of like putting on the mask. You're like, I guess it's worth it for this.
Yeah.
But anyway, quite disturbing. And they got progressively more disturbing. Like, the last one that I remember sending you was, like, the Zora mask, where it's like, I saw him die, and now I put on his mask and these soulless eyes that are, like, the face is, like, cracked. It's, like, really disturbing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the cracks coming out of the eye sockets on the Zora mask are really upsetting.
That's the most
Yeah.
disturbing part. And I think they're kind of like that on the others, like on the Goron mask and the Deku. The Deku mask kind of has this, like, glow inside the eyes. But, like, Link's scream every single time is so disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do like how Link's voice changes every time you put on a mask, which is interesting. Yeah, so that's fucked up. One other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is the, like, statue designs when you play the, like, Elegy of Emptiness.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because they're also disturbing, but in a different way, because they, like, purposefully look sort of soulless. Like, they have this really creepy, like, far-off expression. It's like the
And they're
opposite
just-
of the mask.
They're also just different enough. They
uncanny.
seem like a taxidermy. You
Yeah.
know how, like, it's not quite the same. You see that what it was going for, but it's not the same.
Yeah,
as
it's
when it was
perfectly
alive.
in the uncanny
Yeah.
valley of
Yeah, the one that disturbed me the worst was of Darunia, because you can see that big
Huge
slash across
scar.
his chest. Yeah.
And I was like, I mean,
which is not on your body when you transform.
At least you can't see it. But yeah, there's a huge scar on there, which makes sense because he died. Didn't he die in like a battle in the?
Yeah, I think he's got a scar on his like ghost form.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so there's a giant scar, which is horrifying. That is the thing that I specifically noted in my notes when I wanted to talk about this. But yeah, they're really creepy looking, but just in a completely different experience of creepiness, like a completely different vibe of creepiness. I don't know how in this game they managed to fit every possible type of scariness vibe. It's like uncanny, like people like changing, and then like just body horror, just straight up body horror, like, you know, just like the fear of tragedy, and then anxiety from the time changing all the time. Like, I'm not gonna say I didn't enjoy this game, but it is a scary. It's like all kinds of levels of disturbing, basically. It's not a horror game, but it's very disturbing. And there's no straight up like gore, like, you know.
It's like 2 feet to the left of a horror game. Like it's
Yeah.
like it would not take much tweaking to turn it into one.
Some people commented that they found this game more, like I saw on Reddit, that they found this game more scary than like horror games like Silent Hill and stuff like that. It's like, it's different.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of horror.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I don't find like outright scary, but it's one of the more unsettling games I've ever played.
It just really makes you think too.
Yeah.
And not in a good way. Ocarina of Time has such a different vibe because it's like you are like, I'm going back in time. I'm going through time to like save everyone. I gotta go fix what I accidentally messed up when I took the sword, and like I'm gonna fight the ultimate evil. And then like you end up fighting evil, but like another really interesting comment I saw on Reddit was like, at the end of 3 days, you're like, did I help enough people? Did I do the right thing? Did I make the best use of my time? Like, you were sort of asking these very different questions, I think, that you're left with while you're waiting for the day to reset than in Ocarina of Time when you're waiting to transition back in time. That has nothing to do with visuals. However, it's very interesting. So we talked about that. The maps are horrifying. Okay, so the levels. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can I?
Yes.
So going on with that, like, did I do enough in the 3 days? For me, the last cycle is kind of very important because that's the one that you isn't getting reset. So, you know, like choosing who you help during those 3 days. So, what I often have done is because I think you can do the Romani, you save Romani, and you can get Kefi and Anju. I think you can do both of those in the same cycle. And then, like if I was kind of trying to finish the game and move on, I think I would have done that, and then at least saved the mummy guy as well. And then in my previous playthroughs, I'd like to beat the 4 dungeons, just have those be beat too before I fought the boss, Majora.
So you go and fight the boss again in each dungeon before fighting Majora.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've seen conversations online where people talk about like how many things you can do in one 3 day cycle.
Yeah.
It's like, can you help everybody and stuff? I don't think you can get everybody, but you can get quite a lot of them.
Yeah. And so, like, yeah, just thinking about how... Because the end credits is a bit of a cop-out, because it shows everyone that you've saved, or maybe even didn't
But
save.
you didn't do that. Like, because you do that on the... You know, you did it the first 3 days.
You reset the
times.
times.
They're not
Yeah,
actually okay.
So, you know, it's just like, again, it really makes you want to, like, plan out, okay, I'm about to beat the game and this is going to take place, so...
I guess some of them are like people are like, oh, I wanted to do this before the world ends or whatever. So if the world's not ending, then they have more time to do that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like the guy with his chickens and stuff. Like...
Yeah, he can march the chickens himself
Yeah.
after. It's fine. They'll grow up just fine. Everything will be fine. Like, it'll probably all be fine. But you could do it. But yes.
Yeah.
It's more important for you to save the world than to grow up the chickens. We have to weigh our priorities, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Although I really enjoyed marching the chickens around. That was really fun.
Yeah.
I was like, this is bringing me joy actively.
Yeah.
was like, I have no existential questions about marching chickens around until they grow up.
Those chickens grow up.
I was like, look at them. Everyone is happy. We're marching. But yeah, the credits are like all cool except for the sad Deku son.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also happy. You're like, oh, look, everybody, I hope they're all happy. And they're like, oh.
No. It's like, damn, nobody fixed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of time, actually, there are special transitions for the time transitions that are also sort of existential, where it goes to this like white space and then you see the clocks all moving and stuff. I really liked the time animation, like transition animation. I thought it was, also disturbing and cool.
Like when you reset
like
time,
when
or
you play the song of time, or you
yeah.
play the song of double time, or you play the slow down time song.
I also like the Song of Soaring animation. With, like,
it was also disturbing though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tension in that song. I would play it and be like, okay, I gotta go to this place, and I'd be like, do I want to go there? Like, I don't know. But I do like the animation where you get like wrapped up in the wings. Yeah. But yeah, I was always like, I'd be like, here we go, yay! And then it's like, do 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 do. I'd be like, wait, do I want to? I don't know. I'm scared now. Every single time.
Yeah, I like the just having one fast travel song too, instead of like one.
Yes.
For each
Yes.
Well, like for the other fast travel songs in Ocarina of Time, they were like fun, but yeah, I'd have to look at the thing every time because I didn't remember
they were
any
long
of them.
and fairly complicated.
They are.
It's like 8 notes of.
Yeah.
But one is the Song of Friendship, which is important, obviously.
Yeah.
Which is the Bolero of Fire joke that I really...
Song of Friendship in Dutch angles.
Yes. Well, the one with Dutch angles is when you play Saria's song for Darunia.
Yeah.
Or not. It is. It's Rudania, sorry.
No, it's Darunia. Yeah, I said it's Darunia in Ocarina of Time. It's Darmani and
Majora's
Mask. I
that's
messed that up.
Okay, sorry. I messed that up the whole
yeah.
time. I apologize to people screaming in the audience.
Yeah. They're very similar names, so.
How dare they have similar names? But yeah, okay, whatever. So to Darunia. But yeah, it is nice to have one song and to have like a method where like, okay, there's going to be one owl in a relevant area and definitely one somewhere near or inside the dungeon, basically. So you can kind of like anticipate that after the first one, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about the visuals of the clock, and then we kind of touched upon this, but also just like the sound effect and the visuals of the, dawn of the third day. that I mean, it is very iconic. I mean, I see it all the time in just
it's become
like
a meme.
It is a meme.
Yeah, but it's also very, very powerful. And I mean, as we said, the dawn of a new day is just such a I don't know, because of how
such a good payoff.
Powerful like just the normal screen is. That novel one really just hits even harder.
And the sound effects were reused from Ocarina of Time. But, like, I don't think that lessens them at all. It's like the daybreak sound effect. And when it's, like, dawn or the first day. I think it's maybe dawn for every day if you're not in a dungeon, I'm not sure. But definitely the first day. And then, like, the night
they play this,
howl.
the little noises.
Yeah. The little transition ones.
Yeah, I like that, too, where it's like it makes it a little more unobtrusive so it doesn't interrupt your flow when you're going through a dungeon, but it still lets you know that time is passing. So.
Yeah.
They use them again, at least definitely in Wind Waker, the sun rising one.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed immediately and really enjoyed was the different music in Clocktown during the 3 days. It gets faster. So like the first day is like the do 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 do, and it's all very cheerful. Like we're getting ready for a festival, kind of medieval vibe. And then the second day, it's like it goes faster, so it's like do 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 do. It's like probably maybe I'm gonna say 50% to 100% faster, so it's like almost double the speed, maybe. And then the last day, it's like really, it's faster, and it has a drone, this added drone in the background that goes like. So there's the regular theme but fast, and then this drone underneath, like kind of a siren. And then once you get to night, I think like maybe 6 hours before the moon falls, it's like silent, but with this kind of like atmospheric music a little bit. And if you're in Clock Town, it's like very, very quiet all of a sudden. It's very disturbing.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that the first time that I came back. I was like, what the fuck is
Yeah.
this? And the sky gets like dark
and
pinker and pinker, especially in the 3DS version.
Yeah, and you get like shakes of the screen.
Oh yeah, once it gets to the third day. So once it becomes a third day, the screen vibrates every so often. It's all day long the third day.
Yeah.
It gets worse later, like when it gets closer to nighttime, but yeah, the whole day. So you're like in a dungeon trying to focus on something and the screen is shaking. And you're like, oh no, it's happening. It's getting closer and closer.
Yeah, it feels very apocalyptic. Like it's a really good
It's disturbing.
good atmosphere in that last day.
If I had to pick one word to describe Majora's Mask, it would be disturbing.
Yes. Yep.
It's really cool. Oh, Koji Kondo. Koji Kondo was the main composer for this as well, who we know and love. And then a guy named Toru Minagishi also had some credits for some of the battle songs. He also wrote a shit ton of the KK songs for the original Animal Crossing. And then I think he came back and did some things for later Zelda games, but we'll see later in later episodes. Oh yeah, he did some things for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Yeah. So so he comes in later. Koji Kondo eventually becomes like more of a, I think like a high level director in his kind of career path, and doesn't do like direct composition as much in the later Zelda games. So I don't remember if this is the last one, but this is probably one of the later ones he was like heavily involved in doing composition for, just out of, for curiosity.
But then his songs are so embedded in the series anyway.
They don't go away. Like,
yeah.
And also this one had the Return of the Hyrule Field theme, y'all. Except it's like the Termina Field, which we all know is Hyrule Field. Come on, like, don't lie. I mean, yeah, we're in Termina, but no, it's so the Hyrule Field theme is back, and they use it when you clear the temple. There's a slow version where it's like do 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 do, and then it transitions, like it becomes spring, or the muck all clears, or whatever the problem is goes away. So it's also repeated there too.
Triumphant reprieve.
Yeah. Which is great. I was like, yay, I'm in a real Zelda game. We're riding on Epona. We've got the Hyrule Field theme. Like, we're doing it. It's happening. And then you put on a horrifying mask, and then you're like, I'm in Majora's Mask, not in a regular Zelda game. And yeah, of course, music is a huge part of this game, both in atmosphere and in gameplay. As we already discussed, many of the, like, you have to learn songs from people. You have the same amount of songs that you did in Ocarina of Time, which includes the Scarecrow song, and some of them are the same as Ocarina of Time, like the Song of Time. Obviously does something different in this game where you go and reset over and over again. There's also Song of Storms, which is like called something else, I think, but it does a lot of random stuff.
It dispels curses.
It does. So it actually like has a use other than the one thing that it does in Ocarina of Time. And so it dispels curses. It also like gets the water flowing so that you can access the house with the guy, like the music box house, and a bunch of different things. It also, there's like that side quest with like Flat and Sharp, or maybe it's not a side quest, but the composers brothers. And so you play the Song of Storms, which is Flat's song to Sharp, and then it like he doesn't kill you or whatever. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it does, but there's that.
I think it dispels his curse, which is what allows the water to flow again. So it's like everything's vaguely under the heading of dispels a curse.
Yes,
Yeah.
Watery dispels a curse. There's a Pona song again.
Oh, yes.
There's a Scarecrow song, which I didn't end up using. But I think it's the same.
Yeah, you need it for like 2 or 3 heart pieces. The unfortunate part is that it resets every time you play the song.
Oh,
so you have
do it every. You have to go play it again.
You have to teach it to this, or you pick a different song.
Do whatever you want.
And then
Okay, so you don't have to remember. It doesn't play a horrible, like slow, awkward song like it did for me.
I think you could be, but then you just
you could
restart and do it again. Yeah,
that's valuable because I was so tired of waiting for it to play. That was pretty funny when we played Ocarina of Time. So in addition to those songs from before, you have like the Song of Double Time, which we already talked about, and the Song of Inverted Time, which Song of Double Time either takes you to the day or the night in the N64 version, or you can pick a specific time in the 3DS version, basically, by scrubbing through the timeline. And the Song of Inverted Time slows time down by half. Wait, by dub. Yeah, by half. It goes half as fast.
I really love how both of those songs... Yeah, I really love how both of those songs sound, too. When
so
you play
good.
They're just a little bit off and distorted from the regular Song of Time.
And, well, it's the same notes, but then for the Song of Double Time, it kind of, like, the pace, the tempo increases.
And, like, Link does this weird little dance while, like, during the cutscene, and, like, it's spinning around and it gets really fast. I don't know. That animation.
He
really
kind of
cool.
like acts like it's kind of out of control. It's very interesting. And the Song of Inverted Time, at least in the I can't remember if the song like slows down, but the clicking in the clock ticking in the transition sound, like the sound effect, slows down, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And like kind of staggers. Like...
Yeah. I feel like those songs make you feel really powerful in this game where not a lot is like in your control initially. Like you have this deadline that's ticking down, but then once you have access to those songs specifically, I feel like it gives you like a little bit more leeway and freedom to do what you want, which is nice. It gives you like a real sense of agency in the game. Just like the teleportation, like the owls, the Song of Soaring, like you said. We talked about this a little bit, like that I just think it's very tense. The song itself is like the 6 notes you play sound fine, but then like the rest of the song and the animation is like it has this increasing pitch, so it goes up in pitch and like tempo a little bit, and then you get kind of like wrapped up in the wings and taken away. It always kind of like made me anxious. Like we're going to a place and it's like you picked the place, like you did everything, you had agency in what you did, but then you're like getting kind of swooped away and it's a little bit awkward. And then you have the songs that you have to learn to enter the temples through various methods, like the Goron Lullaby, the New Wave Bossa Nova, and the song Sonata of Awakening. And we talked about Epona, Song of Storms. Oh, and then the last one, there's the Elegy of Emptiness that lets you leave the statues, the horrifying statues that we talked about before. And then last but not least is the Oath to the Order, which you learn very early in the game, but then you don't need to use it until later. I was like, what is this song for? Like when I first learned it, and I was like, what is going on with these like weird giant things in the clouds? Like it becomes more obvious later as the game goes on, but I was like, what the fuck is this when you learn it for the first time? But yeah, so you have the songs again, and you have your trusty ocarina that you have to get back at the beginning of the game, and the music is also represented on staff, just like in Ocarina of Time. So you have that, and there's also a whole like couple of musical side quests, which we talked about earlier. But there's the one where you get the band leader, the Zoras, to like learn your song that Mikao was working on with the bass player, which gives you a heart piece. And then if you perform the Windfish, the Song of the Windfish, or the Ballad of the Windfish in the bar, then you also get a heart piece. You as Link play all the different parts with your different masks, which is really funny. Yeah. And the Ballad of the Windfish is, of course, a reference to Link's Awakening. It's not the same song. At least it doesn't sound that similar to me. It could be like parts of it are like reorchestrated or something, but it doesn't sound exactly the same. But yeah.
Also, all the Zora members are like playing older songs in their rooms when you like enter them. Like one's playing like the credits theme from the original Zelda, and I think one's playing like the dungeon theme from Link to the Past or something like that.
And all their instruments sound different. When you transform, I should talk about this also. When you transform using the transformation masks, you have a different instrument that's not an ocarina. So like when you're the Deku Scrub, you have it sounds like kind of a trumpety sound. You have these little like wood I don't know, growths that you could play. They look like they're like attached to you. I don't really get it, but whatever. So you have that. And then you have, as the Goron, you have drums. And then as the Zora Mikao, you have his sick guitar, fish skeleton guitar that you can play, even though you left it at his grave, but whatever. I'm not talking about
I think the implication is that the Ocarina of Time is magical and like transforms into whatever you can actually play in the form you're in.
He's saying Mikau can't play a ocarina. Maybe he doesn't breathe.
Not with his fish fingers.
Yeah. Because Zoras are so weird, especially after they're like the eggs. I was like, I didn't need to know. I don't need to think about Zora biology. Like, it's already weird enough. Like, they're like fish people.
And then they hatch into little tadpoles that are just like heads with a tail. And
they're only heads with a tail.
And then they turn into music notes.
Yes, so they can turn into music notes because they were born to teach you the song, to teach the song to Lulu. I was like, what is this dialogue? But okay, whatever. I'm gonna go do it. Like, I'm not questioning it. I'm just saying it's weird as fuck. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, so are you gonna go like get your kids after?
Yeah,
this?
like what the hell? I don't. Yeah, and I don't know who's
like,
the
or
daddy.
do they just live in the laboratory now?
Well, apparently they needed to be raised in the laboratory water because the water in the Great Bay was fucked up. But after you save it, maybe it's okay. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe afterward.
I don't know. I'm sure. What does the fandom think? Is there fanfic about this? There must be.
Let's see. It's like AO3 Lulu / Mikau.
Post game. Tad raising baby Zora.
Kid fic.
I don't want to know. Anyway, whatever. But I thought it was strange, funny. We talked a little bit about the background music, but that's like kind of like the gameplay of music. You use your various instruments, or the magical ocarina transforms as you transform to play your songs to do the things that you need to do in the game. So I mentioned that there's a lot of it seemed like the background music in Ocarina of Time, like the soundtrack was in Majora's Mask was more extensive than Ocarina of Time. That was just my impression from looking at it and listening to it. But there are definitely some repeats. So we talked about the day and night music. Saria song, aka the Woods theme, comes back. The store theme, Inside the House, that like do 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 do, that song, Inside the House.
Yes.
The Fairy Fountain, which has never changed, I think, since the first Fairy Fountain existed.
Pretty much, yeah.
The Organ Grinder song, aka the Song of Storms. All the like sound effects, like the heart container, treasure test.
Yeah.
The shooting gallery music is the same. The battle music is very similar to Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. It's not exactly the same, but there's like similar themes, but it's been like reorchestrated. The Goron village music is the same as like the Goron sort of like village in the volcano in Ocarina of Time. The like ranch music I think is the same, with Epona's song like embedded in it. The Marine Research Lab song is the same. The Ikana Graveyard is kind of similar to outside Hyrule Castle when you like in adult Link's time. So like when you step outside of Hyrule Castle, or sorry, not Hyrule Castle, you step outside of the Temple of Time. So like in the Hyrule Castle town, that sort of like howling, awful music is like very, very similar. There was some new music, I think, that comes back in later games, which is like the mini game song. I definitely remember that in Wind Waker. We talked about how the Hyrule Field song is back, which is great. And then we talked about how in other places there's like new music, which is very interesting. One that I really like particularly was the Deku Palace music, which has this like, it's like very like a medieval vibe. It's like very bardcore before bardcore existed, which is hilarious. It has like this sort of like drum and flute. Yeah, I don't know. It has a very medieval vibe to me. Like medieval European vibe. It was very interesting and I enjoyed that. The Oath of the Order has this like the giants like distorted voices in it, which is a little bit weird and creepy. The Great Bay coast music is like super sinister.
Yeah, it's really eerie. I didn't like notice that at first, and then I was like hanging around there doing other stuff, and I was like, "What is this?"
But then it also has a steel drum, which in my mind is like the happiest and most relaxed possible instrument. But yet they managed to even make a steel drum sound creepy in Majora's Mask. So props to you, Koji Kondo, if you're listening to this podcast, for making even steel drums sound scary, which is hilarious to me. And then like I found Mikau's song really lame.
Oh yeah,
it's like 4 notes. And I was like, is this like your dying ballad? And it's like 4 notes. Like, why are we doing this? Maybe there's not enough. Maybe they just needed space for RAM or something. But I was like, what the F? Give him like a crazier song. Anyway. And then like the Gerudo pirate music is not the same as the Gerudo Valley, but it's very similar, so it has the same vibe.
Well, is it not similar to the also Hyrule Castle in like?
Yeah, it reminded me of like the older Hyrule Castle.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the Ikana Castle music reminded me of like Ganon's Castle and Link to the Past.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
The Ikana Valley and Ikana.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking of Ikana Castle, not the Pirate Fortress. Yeah.
But yeah, that reminded me of Ganon's theme and Ganon's Castle from Link to the Past. I don't think it's exactly the same, but it also has a similar vibe. And the Ikani Valley music gives me like all the heebie-jeebies. There's like every kind of thing that you could put in it to make it scary. There's like chanting, like the Temple of Time music. There's like shrieking. There's like this distorted whistle sound. There's this like distorted, like, you know, when you slam on the bass end of a piano, like the low notes of a piano, there's this like slamming piano noise in it. Everything about it is horrifying. And that place is really scary, so I think that it works, but it's just like, yeah, it was a really, really creepy vibe. And I really also enjoyed the Stone Temple inverted music, where it plays that like...
Yeah, I loved that change.
It plays the music differently, and then it has the really interesting part, I think, is that it has like what sounds like a sped up like tape noise, like a fast forward tape noise or a rewinded tape sound that plays in it. Like this distorted, like really sped up noise that's added, sound effect that's added in it, and I think it's really great. And horrifying, but also really great. And it's like one of the only places that has like multiple music for when different things happen, except for Clocktown, which is very interesting. Those were all the things I wanted to say about music. Is there anything else that you all noticed? Like,
I just feel like that overall, all the new songs are pretty fucking good.
Pretty rad.
Like, yeah, I mean, there's, I think some of the dungeon music, particularly Snowhead and Great Bay, are kind of eh. But with what's the first one? Oh my god, the
Deku Palace.
Yeah,
that was pretty great.
Well, no, the actual dungeon itself.
That one is cool.
It has, yeah, I think remnants of like the Forest Temple, how it has that like just a little eerie and like the chanting in the background and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, that one's definitely a little
Woodfall.
Like not a banger, but atmospheric. It's I think it's really got.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, just like all the new songs are so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the Stone Tower Temple music, both the regular and inverted.
You definitely feel like you're...
But yeah, when the first time you flip it, and it's got that change to the music, it's just like, oh, that's cool.
The whole temple, or the whole dungeon is cool, because it, like, flips and everything, and the music really adds to that. I thought that, like, the spinning room in the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time was cool, but, like, this is, like, a whole dungeon that's the spinning room.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty cool. It was pretty great. I thought that the one temple that I didn't like the design as much in Majora's Mask was the water one. Like, it is really, it's a lot easier to navigate, but I found it very, like, industrial looking.
Yeah.
And, like, a lot of the dungeons in all Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are very, like, organic. Like, they look like they're part of the place that they're in, if that makes sense. Like, the Spirit Temple looks like a cave in the desert that's been, like, carved and, like, crafted. And, like, the Forest Temple looks like this building that was built in the forest that's been, like, overgrown. Like, they all, even if there's, like, a sort of, like, or, like, you know, you're inside a tree, or you're inside a fish, or you're inside something, like, the levels are all very sort of, like, organic. But the one exception, I think, is, like, this Great Bay... like temple looks very mechanical. It actually reminded me of like Link to the Past, that like swamp temple or swamp like dungeon, swamp palace where you have to change the water levels and swim around and stuff. It actually reminded me more of that than like anything else from Ocarina of Time or whatever. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I like that turtle though.
I did like riding on a turtle. And I feel like that's a allusion to like there's a Japanese folklore called Urashima Taro where he like, it's not as famous as like Momotaro, but Urashima Taro, at least not, I don't know, probably not to people who don't live in Japan, but like Urashima Taro is a fisherman and he saves a turtle one day, and turns out the turtle is like the child of like the goddess of the sea or whatever, So as a reward, he gets taken to her like palace and they like party. So this giant turtle comes and picks him up and takes him down under the sea. So it reminded me of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of like turtle islands and worlds and mythology.
There's
too.
little trees on top of the turtle, like Torterra. Also,
I also feel like he was also in the melee level.
Oh,
so like since I didn't play Majora's Mask until I was quite a bit older, a lot of like my associations with it are playing it in Best Buy and then the Super Smash Bros. Melee level. So it's like when I like get to those parts, I'm like, oh, like I feel nostalgic for them even though I didn't play them. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, turtle guy.
My only association with Majora's Mask is like the image of Majora's Mask. I didn't know anything about this game until we played it, which was kind of nice, actually.
Yeah,
because I knew things about Ocarina of Time. Like I knew that Zelda was Sheik. Like I knew that there was time travel involved. Like, I don't know. I just knew more stuff about Ocarina of Time than I knew about Majora's Mask, so it was kind of nice. But then it still felt like very familiar, even though it's creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
What were your like overall impressions? Cosmos, still your favorite game?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I tried to play the randomizer and I didn't like that, but I think as for the game itself in its original state, so good.
Why didn't you like the randomizer? Just out of curiosity.
I think it's very linear, and basically you don't ever have to go back. Pretty much, like once you're done with the swamp, you really have no reason to go back. Once you're done with Snowhead, there's very little. Like you don't need to get something from Great Bay and then go back to Snowhead, right? Whereas with Ocarina of Time, you start in the forest and then you come back later as an adult and you go to the fire temple and the dongos. Like you circle the area at least 2 times, and then on top of that there are things that you have to go back for when you get later items. So there's like stuff that you have to wait before you can go back to get in, like Kakariko Village or in
like you can't go in the well until it's like you're an adult or whatever. You can't.
Yeah. Stuff like that. And so I think for that, you need to come back you need multiple items that you don't normally have the first time you go through and play through an area. Whereas with Majora's Mask, it's basically you get the items in the area, you get everything you need from there, and then you move on, with the exception of like some obnoxious things like the deeds from trading,
if you want to do that, you have to do it over and over again, apparently, which is annoying.
Yeah, and like if you find the first one, but not the second one, once you reset time, you're gonna have to go back and get the first one again. And so I think it just doesn't lend itself as well to randomizer. I think another part of it is that the Ocarina of Time has the tools for it are just so well designed.
It's more popular, right? So there's some more.
It's more popular. Yeah, it's got the support. It's the layout's very clear on what you need to do. It's very great for beginners, whereas the Majora's Mask one is a lot more. If you don't know what you're doing, it's harder to sort of see. Okay, what do I have to do next? Where can I go? How do I approach this?
Do you think like Majora's Mask has some things you have to do in a certain order, but a lot of it is like non-linear. Like you can get all the side masks, I think, without doing certain things, or like, do you think that like when you play this, do you play it the same way every time? Like, no. Okay.
Well, I mean, maybe, because I think I do a dungeon and then I go back and I like, all right, what are the side quests I can do? Like I circle through the clock town and go a bit further out, and then I go to the next dungeon, and then I come back. Okay, what can I do, and things like that. I think just the difference is maybe not remembering what everything, or
because I think like with my impression, at least, is with Ocarina of Time, it's the same order every time. If you're not playing the randomizer, it's exactly the same. Like I guess you can go to some of the different dungeons first. Like you said, you did one of the other dungeons when it wasn't the one that Navi was telling you to go to. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, I did Water Temple before Fire Temple.
But like other than that, like there's not a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
Compared to
That's
Majora's
fair.
Mask. That's my impression from playing it. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely could go through, like, I think that there is a huge variety in, like, which ones I do first, like, which side quests, in the order, and, like, there's some that I might forget and I might do a bit later, there's some that I might, so I think there is sort of you have the option to come back and do things very out of order, but just I think the way I play is I try before moving on, completing everything I can do.
Yeah, you're still you.
All the side quests
like,
first.
Like it's like what you're describing to me sounds like the way that you approach the game in general, not necessarily
general, yes.
like I have a checklist of things that I'm gonna do that I can do in whatever order I want or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting in and of itself. Actually, I'm sure people play this game very differently because there's a lot of, like I kind of said before, my impression is with Majora's Mask, there's a lot of room for like strategy in like how you spend the 3 days. Like I never, I can understand why it'd be frustrating for people, but I never found it challenging. I just saw it more as like, okay, like I'm gonna have to like prepare that I'm gonna do this thing in 3 days once I figure out like how it works, once it's in my notebook, or like once I open the dungeon, or like once I do this thing, like you have to like anticipate more what you're gonna do and like plan what you're going to do, I think, as opposed to just being like, I'm gonna go in dungeon and see what happens, which is what I would do in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I think I think the frustration was mostly from just poor time management, because I didn't reset time probably when I should have, and like I was like, oh, I have enough time to do this, because it was like early in the second day, but Stone Tower, for example, is very long, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I think I missed a fairy here and there, and so I think between that and between Great Bay, a similar issue happened. Otherwise, yeah, for the most part, it's like, okay, I know what I need to do, and again, being able to skip to the exact hour helps a lot, and sort of just, I have a general outline because I've played it. I remember a lot of the things. I don't know how much you looked up because you had a guide, but playing the first time without a guide, just hopping right into it, I think would be a lot more frustrating.
The first like couple, I started to rely more on the guide when I realized I had to get Epona, and I was like, I don't even know. Like, I didn't even know there was like a ranch in this game. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like in Ocarina of Time, part of the first thing you do when you're sneaking into Hyrule Castles, you have to wake up the guy from the ranch, so like you know it exists. But I didn't just go run around Termina Field. Like, I went straight for I didn't find Milk Road. I went straight to the woods. Like, I found the path to the woods right away. It's not like I went to the wrong place or something. Like, I went in the correct direction immediately when I left to go to that temple. So, like, I didn't know that existed. I didn't even, like, think about Epona after because I'm an asshole. But I was just like, like, it is nice when you reunite. But I just, like, didn't care. Like, it wasn't on my mind. And I was like, now I gotta figure out where Epona is. Like, I don't... So I had to look that up in a guide. And like sometimes things were just like not obvious. Like I was like, what do I do with the Zora eggs? And then it's like take them back to the Marine Lab. And I was like, oh right, I did go in there and talk to that guy. I definitely should have. I should have known that, and like stuff like that. Like, it was kind of the same. Like I feel like I used the guide the same way that I used it generally speaking in Ocarina of Time, where it'd be like I would try to do stuff, and then I would be like, I know I need to get into the stupid Pirate Bay. But, like, how do you actually do that? There must be a way to sneak in here. And it was, like, blast through the wall. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, or whatever. Just, you know, like that kind of thing where I would try something. And then, but then, like, also I think with the added pressure of time where it's like, I have to get all these eggs in 3 days. I can't, like, think about this for a whole day. Like, if I want to be efficient, like, I could go back and do it again. But we have a recording schedule that I theoretically had to meet that I definitely didn't. So I was like, okay, like I'm going to think about this for like 10 minutes. And then if I can't figure it out, then I'm going to look at a guide or whatever. So I definitely went to a guide earlier because of the time limit, but I didn't just follow a guide. So I still use it the same way.
But I think that's the same thing where if you wanted to try and do it on your own, you didn't have a guide, you want to have that, there's a sense of accomplishment for some people for doing it by themselves.
If I had 3 years
you
to
get
do
to
it.
yeah,
like,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like if that's what you're trying to do and you finally figure it out and you've gotten like 5 of the eggs and you're run out of time, so now you have to turn back time and do it all over again. You know what to do, but you have to go through the entire fortress again.
You have to open all the gates.
The pinnacle rock or whatever. Yeah.
You have to find the seahorse.
So like so for that reason I think it's frustrating. It's if you have to do that multiple times because you don't know all these side quests very well. You missed the small window that you're supposed to do something. You failed at saving Romani. I failed at the very end of Kefi's thing to get the mask. And so I mean that's probably the most involved side quest there is, so I had to start that all over again. And again, if it was N64 where I didn't have the option to skip to a specific hour,
you're like waiting
there'd
around.
be a lot of waiting. And if that's all I had left to do, I didn't have anything else that I could have done. So there's definitely lot
trade-offs
that I think. Yeah. So I think that it is. It can be very frustrating if you don't know what you're doing, and very punishing if you don't manage your time correctly.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of what the 3DS version does fixes a lot of that because you can save, and then if you fuck up, you can go back to exactly the time that you saved. You can skip forward to the exact hour.
Yeah.
But the original game, the N64, where a lot of people played it, and probably a lot of the reviews that we had, they didn't have all these tools. I can completely understand where maybe they say the trade-off isn't worth it because of how frustrating it is. Sure, it might be cool that you have the 3-day cycle and these events that happen, but like it's just not worth it because of the hassle of if you fuck up, you have to do the whole thing.
There's like a tipping point in all games where it is no longer fun. Like I can't remember specifically, but there's games where it's just like, no, I refuse to like practice playing a game. Like I don't like that's not the point. Like I remember people like when Guitar Hero was really big and people would be like, oh, I'm gonna go play Guitar Hero so I can get better. It's like I don't care. I just like want to have fun. Like, and I think it's kind of the same thing where it's like there is a tipping point in this game where it's your like the trade-off of accomplishing things in the 3 days can get pretty easily outweighed by not accomplishing things in the 3 days. And like if you're like not as familiar with the series, or you're not as strong at gaming, or like you just you want to explore freely, it's like not the vibe that you're looking for in a game. I think that could very, very easily tip over into being not fun very quickly. I always saw it as kind of like the experience that I had was positive. Like I really enjoyed the concept of changing time over and over again. And like even if I needed to redo things, it was like, oh, I have to go make it spring again to do this. And I treated it more as like a puzzle. It was like a puzzle mechanism outside of a dungeon, which in Zelda is kind of an interesting concept because you have a lot of these, like the dungeon is like you got to figure out like a couple of things to like make the dungeon work. And it was kind of like you have this meta layer of a puzzle that you have to figure out, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, it could definitely be frustrating. I could see it very easily becoming frustrating, especially you do like a whole hard dungeon like the Stone Tower, and then like and you're trying to get all the fairies and you can't or whatever, like it can become very repetitive very quickly, I think, if you're not careful.
Yeah, I think it's a game you kind of got to know what you're going into to some degree when you start it. Like if you're expecting it to be like Ocarina of Time 2, it's not that.
It's not. Yeah. It's a completely different game. It looks like Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I mean,
it walks and
it's
talks
built on
like
the engine, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's on the N64.
But I do think the game does a good job making it very clear very early on that it's not Ocarina of Time 2, even though it is the sequel.
It's a direct sequel, but it's not the same game.
Yeah. So it's not my favorite because it's a little too stressful, I think, for me to like enjoy it on like that kind of level. But I do kind of think it's a masterpiece. Like,
it's a very interesting game mechanic. Like, there must have been like time-based games and stuff in the past. Like, I don't really know. I'm not. It was like I think recognizing the place and history of like the original Legend of Zelda game and like Zelda 2 was really easy, but like by 2000 when this game came out, there's so much more like video games, technology was so much better, like, but this game I think it was recognized both for its challenges and like the ingenuity and like the complexity of the 3-day cycle and doing the same thing over and over again is very interesting, or like repeating the cycle over and over again.
Like, there's a fair amount of time loop games nowadays, but it was pretty innovative at the time. I don't think there were that many.
I think so.
Like it, and definitely not as like complex. Like there's so many moving parts that react to what you do.
I think that was very important to like the directing and development team. That's like people react to the 3-day cycle. Like, it's not like it's just happening. Like, we talked about how great it is that all the NPCs, like, react to the moon getting closer and react to things. Like, I think, like, creating all those events was very important to the concept of this game.
Yeah. Yeah, and,
like you have dungeons, like every Zelda, but, like, you have all this other stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
What makes it Majora's Mask, I think.
Yeah, you spend a lot more time on the overworld than in the dungeons compared to, like, other games. At least so far. I think they get more of a balance going forward. But yeah, I think it's like kind of a masterpiece just because it's a really impressive game. Like, even without considering the time crunch they were on, which makes it even more impressive. It's just a really well put together game with a lot of thought in all the parts, and it's also like kind of a masterpiece of mood. Like, it's just the tone and mood in this game is just like, it's like there's nothing else like it. Like I said, like, it make me had feelings, and it's like, it's hard to describe, because, like, nothing makes me feel the way Majora's Mask does when I play it. Like, there's other unsettling games, and existential games, and spooky games, but there's nothing quite like Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
I wrote, my 2 notes that I wrote in my conclusion section of my notes are, obviously we compare this to Ocarina of Time, and existential dread. Those are literally the only 2 things that I wanted to talk about. It has such a weird... Yeah, like, there's games that make you think about, like, life, and games that are scary, and games that are challenging, but none of them is really, like, the same. None of the games that I've ever played, at least, are similar to Majora's Mask, and, like, the questions that I had, like, I didn't have questions about the plot of the game, but, like more like the experience that I had was like I've brought it up so many times already, so I'm sorry for repeating myself, but just like the way people perceive you when you wear the different masks, and like how you change when you wear the mask, like what is that trying to sort of like convey, and then like the freakiest thing was like the questions that the children ask you in the moon, where it's like I don't know if my friends perceive me as friends, or like I don't know if the things that I do make other people happy. Like, that's an interesting question to contemplate. Like, they're a very it's just a game that leaves you like, when you're playing it, you're like, okay, I've done the thing, I got the freaky eggs, and I took them to the place, and I did I flipped the stone tower around, and I beat the boss, and like but then afterward, like when you turn the console off, that's when the interesting questions sort of like come up, I feel like. It's a game that sort of like lingers when you turned it off.
Yeah.
I think recently there have been some good like psychological horror kind of thing games where like they have similar results. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it's, they're few and far between for sure, and none of them that I've seen have hit the same way that Majora's Mask has, but I might just be biased. I don't know.
It was a really good game. And a game that I unlike the other games that I didn't finish in this podcast series so far. Like, I don't know. Link to the Past is like, or it's fine. It's fine. Like, it's a good game, but I don't really want to go back and beat all those like extra 7 temples or whatever or dungeons that I didn't do. But this game is like, I would like to actually spend time playing it and experimenting. Like, it's because even though you have like the time pressure, you also get to do everything over and over again. So like you can experiment with like going to one place or another place or whatever at different times. And like, I look forward to doing that, which I didn't necessarily look forward to doing with other games that I didn't like finish when we played them, for example.
Yeah.
Still not I don't think it's my favorite yet though.
No.
I don't think it's yeah. Well, My favorite, when we discussed in the beginning, my favorite is Breath of the Wild.
Oh, okay.
Which just like doesn't compare.
Yeah, I mean,
I think in our current running list of ones we played for the show, it's tied with Ocarina right now for my favorite one.
They're both
with,
really good.
Link's Awakening just behind.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And then everybody hates Zelda too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I prefer this over Ocarina of Time. I think they're they're so different, but like both enjoyable in different ways.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like I kind of think like Ocarina is more like surface level fun, like you can turn on and mess around in there, but I think Majora's Mask is a better experience like overall, so but they're both really good. Yeah.
Ocarina of Time made me go wow, but like Majora's Mask makes me go you know,
Yeah.
like it's like you're like, whoa, I'm going back in time, whoa, everything's like crazy, oh, I'm saving the thing, I'm doing the thing, like I fought the big boss, like that's what Ocarina of Time feels like. It feels like you're like really accomplishing things, and like with Majora's Mask you're like, that was interesting, what's gonna happen these 3 days? Like I don't know, you know, it's kind of
I said
how do I do this efficiently?
Yeah, when we did Ocarina, I said it was like surprisingly cinematic as a game.
Yeah.
It's like I think like Ocarina is kind of like your big blockbuster movie, and Majora's Mask is like your indie hit.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that because, like, obviously, I think like the character aspect is still influenced by Twin Peaks. That was sort of like carried over from Link's Awakening. This movie, the concept of like time doing things over and over again, is apparently influenced by this movie called Run Lola Run, which is like an action thriller where it's like this woman. It's like the action thriller version of Groundhog Day, where it's like you can read about this on Wikipedia, I can put a link or whatever, but there's this like a task that she has to do. She has to help her boyfriend with this task, and like different things happen to her during the day that result in like something bad happening, and then the day restarts again, and like different things change slightly, so it is like this, and it happens over and over again. So this idea, it was the idea of like time repeating over and over again that was used in this game, that was eventually like brought into this game, is like inspired by that sort of like indie thriller horror movie. Is very interesting. So it is.
I've
it is
heard of
like
that movie, but I've never watched it. So.
I've never watched it either. I just read a summary. It seemed interesting, but now I know what happens, so I don't know. I was like, yes, that is similar to Majora's Mask anyway, and then I closed the tab and went back to doing my other research. It's a German movie, if anybody's interested. Yeah.
It sounds German.
The same thing over and over again, and then slightly different things happening or whatever. I don't know. It's an interesting idea, but like Ocarina of Time is like Looper. Like you know, you're going and altering your past your fate as a child or whatever. It's very it's a different cinematic experience. Are there any other things that we think that we want to talk about?
So I have a theory that so far kind of works, not as well as I would like.
You don't have to be right. That's what theories are for.
Well, it's about the sequence of games that come out.
Okay.
So like, I mean, all the 3D Zelda games are serious and have their dark moments, but I feel like comparatively, right, Ocarina of Time is I feel like a much more bright and vibrant game, a much more lively kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
To Majora's Mask.
Until you go through time and then everything's fucked up. But yes.
Yeah, but even still, I don't know. I just feel like it's a little more light.
Yeah.
And then you've got Majora's Mask, which is this complete existential sort of dark themed game. And then you go back to Wind Waker, which is very bright and cute and happy. Yeah. Again, serious movements. And then Twilight Princess, which goes back to sort of this dark, gloomy kind of world. And then back to Skyward Sword, which is, you know, again, bright, vibrant, lively. The characters are very sort of animated. And then you go to Breath of the Wild, which is a weird mix. It's like the darkness in it is very different in that it's like just a very lonely sort of feel. Like even the villages, I feel like, aren't alive. You know, there's a few people,
quiet.
They're quiet. It feels like a very empty sort of
what?
Because everyone's dead.
Yes, I already argued with you once that it's because it's supposed to post-war time period or whatever. But but also like I think that like similar even to Majora's Mask. I think you're meant to feel alone in Breath of the Wild.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It's part of the story.
Yeah, and so it feels dark in that way, but I feel like a lot like when you're exploring. Yes,
the
it's
world
lonely,
is bright,
but it's bright, and so I don't think I would call that kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the other ones have definitely much more leaning towards their side.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Breath of the Wild merges the timeline and also the mood line.
Yeah.
I think Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be dark, though.
That's
at
what
least
I'm
based on
thinking.
the
It looks it. Yeah.
the previews. Yeah. But I think that's what the people want too.
Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting. Maybe this is in the middle, so they just didn't make that pendulum swing all the way. So then the next one's going to be dark, and then we'll go back to the pattern. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll find out when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out. Hopefully soon, sometime.
Well, I feel like after Breath of the Wild 1, it kind of reset it. So Breath of the Wild 2 could be either way. It's what comes after that that matters.
that it's what comes after that like confirms your pattern or not. Yes. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But
I do feel like, generally speaking, Breath of the Wild, like when I think of like the end and the plot and whatever, it's very much like a redemption story, very similar to Ocarina of Time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like it definitely leans.
I think most of the darkness is in the backstory of
the backstory, and again, I think the loneliness,
the present sort of, and the loneliness, and the fact that you. Like, Ganon is, like, lingering. Like, everywhere you go in Hyrule, unless you're at the edge of the map, you can see Ganon waiting for you.
Yeah, and then you see, like, the dilapidated buildings. And, so, like, it definitely has that. It just doesn't play off of it as much as, for example, Majora's Mask, right?
Yeah.
Like, it has that aspect, and it really utilizes it. Whereas Breath of the Wild, it has it there. It's very atmospheric, but it doesn't emphasize it so much in the dialogue, which, very light in that game and stuff like that.
Most people in Breath of the Wild don't interact with Ganon. They're like, oh yeah, that thing, I never go there. But I think the thing about Majora's Mask is, like, every NPC is like, what about that moon, though? Like, it's constant. Like, you can't, I think part of that, like, anxious feeling that comes from it is also you can't, literally anywhere you go, you can see the moon. Everyone's talking about the moon. Everyone's talking about the carnival. Everybody, like, you know what's going to happen, but, like, they don't. So there's also this sort of, like, dramatic irony. But, but, like, as opposed to in Breath of the Wild, like, there, some people will tell you about stuff, like, probably Kaz has a song about Ganon, I think. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like, there are some people who will tell, and like Impa tells you stuff about the warrant, but Impa's like the only one. So there's a lot of NPCs that are just like, I'm looking for a flower, and you're like, why are you out here? There are monsters.
Yeah.
I really like the this is becoming Breath of the Wild podcast, but I really like the the different lifespans of the different species and how that kind of changes how they interact with the like calamity that happened 100 years ago. Like, like the Zora and some of the Sheikah are like the only,
they were there,
like, long-lived ones, and so like they have people who like remember it and were there, and then like
they're still mad at you about me.
Kind of middle of the road. So some of the older ones are like, oh yeah, as a child, like during the evacuation right afterward or whatever, but I don't remember the actual thing. And then like the Rita only lived to be like 50 or something, so like none of them have any kind of living memory.
Yeah, Rivali is a legend to them. Like he's not a real, they sing songs about him and stuff. Like, he's like not really a real person that they knew. They all know about the current guy. I can't remember what his name is.
Tiba.
Yeah. The one who you need to get the bow from and stuff. Yes. Of course you know the bird people.
I like Dorito.
Yeah, I just said of course you know the bird people. You proved me right. I like their like music in the Rito village. Anyway. And I like Kaz. Who wouldn't like him? He's a accordion playing parrot who sings you ballads everywhere you see him. Do you think anyone's reunited all the Kazes? You know how like someone reunited all the Beatles? Maybe someone pushed all the Kazes together. Anyway. Breath of the Wild talk.
Yes. It's a preview for next year.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be approximately this time next year, probably. I think it's like summer. Although we're we're recording this in summer. It was coming out in August or October, spooky time.
Yeah.
I think this is appropriately spooky for
Yep,
October.
and you got your Halloween masks. If you don't know a costume, pick one.
Yeah, you can be a Deku, you can be a Goron.
It's like I'm gonna be your dead best friend.
You can stay up all night long. I forgot to talk about how creepy the all night mask is.
It explicitly says it's a torture device.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like cool.
Great. Well, I mean, you had like the torture dungeon from Ocarina of Time that was like, this is the remnants of Hyrule's bloody past, and you're like, okay, I'm just a child.
There's all sorts of interesting implications with Akana Valley too in this game.
Yeah, everybody's dead.
Yeah,
like what war was
there was a war with a rival kingdom and stuff.
And you're like, I wonder who that could possibly be in this world with two lands or whatever. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, something I found upsetting is when you wear the
just one thing.
Well, something we haven't talked about yet that I found upsetting. When you wear the like skeleton like captain's mask or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
And you like talk to the little skull people. And they'll be like, "Oh, I did this thing for you," and they're like, "Did I complete my task?" And you say yes, and they're like, "All right, I'll complete my final task," and then I just die.
Yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Well, and also the big one is like, "Will you relieve me of my duties?" or whatever. It's like, okay, I guess. Like, yes, it's sad. Mm-hmm. They can finally rest.
Yeah,
unlike people wearing the all-night mask.
Yes,
rest.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that we want to say? Any other disturbing things that we want to talk about?
I've been trying to decide if we're legally obligated to mention Ben Drowned.
What?
The creepypasta around Majora's Mask.
What? No.
You're actually not aware of that? It's
no.
like the most famous creepypasta. Wow.
I don't know anything about creepypasta, except for Slender Man, the most famous creepypasta, probably.
You have to look into it. I think you would enjoy knowing about it.
Would I? I don't know.
Yeah, okay, but it's like a very involved, pretty famous podcast where someone used like modified like gameplay and everything. Like it wasn't just written down. Like there was all these like videos and stuff, and it's basically like they get a haunted Majora's Mask cartridge, and
it's a what is it? ARG? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like it uses like the Elegy of Emptiness statue like following you around, and like all sorts of interesting like they use a bunch of interesting like modifications to the game to make it look like creepy haunted stuff is happening.
All of the photos are just that horrifying face on the Elegy of Emptiness thing, and I really want to stop.
It was a big thing several years ago, and probably
all the art is horrifying.
Probably one of the most famous video game creepypastas.
Oh, why is all the art horrifying? Why did I look at images? It's on Wikipedia. That's how famous it is. It's not even on like Memepedia or whatever the fuck, know your meme or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna read this later. Exciting.
Yeah.
I do remember something else.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we talked about like iconic stuff. You've met with a terrible fate is also another big phrase. And I remember years ago there was an announcement, and it was just that you've been met with a terrible fate, and it had a countdown or something, and we thought it was going to be like a big Majora's Mask remake or a release or a sequel or something. It was very exciting, and it turned out to be a remastering of the music. I think it was an album. Oh, I forgot what it was called. I think it had another name. I don't think it was just called Terrible Fate or something like that. But it was a music remix or remastering of some of the music from Majora's Mask. But it was a countdown, and it was exciting. We didn't know what it was. But I just remember that the phrase really stuck out, especially there.
That was used a lot in the Ben Drowned series, too. You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?
Yeah. I was looking at pictures, and I saw that. That's what made me think of it.
Yeah, when I quoted that line in my summary, I almost said, like, the iconic line, and I'm like, is it only iconic because of the creepypasta, or was it iconic in the game itself? And so I just took it out. It's a good line.
It's definitely iconic.
Yeah.
I mean, it stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Definitely. Not knowing anything about the creepypasta or anything about this game. I was like, I definitely have. I'm a tiny Deku thing, and you took all my shit. My last connection to my past, where I was triumphant, you've stolen it. I was mad for Link.
I think that's everything, unless anyone else has any other last
ARGs, any other Majora's Mask? There's probably more than one Majora's Mask ARG.
I'm sure.
To be fair.
It's definitely a game ripe for creepypasta.
So. Oh, yeah. I think there's even just, like, people talking about, like, the backstory of, like, the All-Night Mask and, like, all that other stuff. It's just, like, even the backstory is creepy. Like, it's not even creepypasta where they're, like, theory about... Yeah, you don't have
reach
to...
too far.
No, you don't. Well, whenever there's a meeting, a parting is sure to follow. However,
Very nice.
that parting need not last forever. Whether a parting be forever or merely for a short time, that's up to you. So, join us November 1st for Oracle Seasons and Oracle of Ages.
Yay.
Yay. I always look for a good quote to end. And that was like, perfect, creepy mask man.
Yep.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Yeah, next we're going to play Oracle Seasons and Oracle of Ages, which are the Game Boy Color duo. Yes. And then finally we can play Wind Waker. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Although I don't know anything about Oracle Seasons and Oracle of Ages, and these were like a collaboration with Capcom, so I'm sure it'll be like slightly different and interesting. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Getting on that Pokemon buy 2 games bandwagon.
Oh yeah.
Get them all to cash in for 2 games.
Yeah.
And I think there's
Gotta catch them all.
Yes, there's a link between them. Like there's things that are different between them, like if you play them in different order and stuff. So
yeah, you can like play one and then do like a linked game of the second one, where it sort of like continues the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, should be interesting.
Yeah, so it will be a time. Does anyone have the cartridge? I'm gonna play it on 3DS.
I've got the 3DS.
I don't know where my Game Boy is, so I'm gonna probably just play the ROM again. Wow.
Anyway, thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time for Oracle of whatever. Oracles.
All right, sounds good.
2 of them.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
When he comes to his senses again, he finds he's been transformed into a Deku scrub.
No.
Well, I was thinking about like being like, oh no, and then I was just like, oh, if only I had the soundbite of like the Deku Scrub like getting hit and falling or something.
Yeah.
Like that would have been perfect to put in there.
I'll put it in.
Yeah.
And note to future Ellen, find that on YouTube and put it in.
You sound so thrilled to have to do that.
It's because I do this to myself because I'll probably play music clips out loud, which means I have to go find them later because I still haven't figured out how to pipe sound from a computer into here. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's all for future Ellen's problem. But like when he falls, doesn't it just go mew?
Well, no, I think
He does that little like screamy sound.
yeah, like yeah.
Okay. I'll find it.
I think he makes the sound when he first gets transformed too. Like
his like
freaking out.
that sound? Yeah, okay. It just came out for the Switch Online Library in 2022, which is current. That was a long time ago. Man, the 3DS, do you think they're freaking... Well, I guess they're not going to do any more handhelds because they're doing the Switch. I feel like we talked about this in another episode.
I mean, if they keep that model up with the next console, but...
Who knows?
Well,
Nintendo does their own thing.
Yeah. They definitely are, like, unapologetically Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I'm sure there's... Like, people like Xbox and PlayStation and whatever, but, like, they're just computers. Like, and most of the, like, not a lot of the games are, like, you can play it on a PC or a PlayStation or an Xbox. So it's, like, you know, it's not really, like, a different console. Like, you can use a different controller. Like, I don't know. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's a rant. Yeah. It's a hot take.
I was having a lot of fond feelings for Nintendo's Nintendo-ness as I was holding my stupid N64 controller playing this game.
Yeah, that was me last time playing Ocarina of Time. It is, and I was like, why do my elbows hurt? Because like we haven't, you know, we've been holding our hands an extra like 2 inches apart for the last since the GameCube came out. But like the middle control stick and the side control or the side arm, the middle arm and the side arm on the N64 controller are so close together. Like it's like. But like,
it looks like it is
experience.
Invented by aliens that have like 3 or 4 hands.
Like I got a great idea, and also it's and it's like this like clear plastic. And my Majora's Mask, I just ordered them. I ordered Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time at the same time from a retro video game store here. My Ocarina of Time was a gray one. My Majora's Mask is gold, and it has a holographic label. Like, this is like peak Nintendo. Yeah. It's pretty great. And then, yeah, like the weird, and then I had to get extension cords and like plug it in and make sure my cats weren't zhuzhing the back of the N64 so that the power would stay connected, because I never had that problem as a child, but we also didn't have cats. So, you know, and I had to make sure it was on like a level surface. And I was like, these are the things, these are the times, these are things we experience as children. Nobody walked by and kicked out the AV cable, which happened a lot when I was a child. But yeah. Anyway. Good times.
This is only vaguely related, but one time in college I was playing a GameCube game on my Wii. So I had the GameCube controller plugged into it, and I had it in my chair in the middle of the room, and I was sitting there. And at one point I do like one of those like instinctive like jerks of the hand that you do with controllers sometimes when you're like really want to make that jump or whatever. And my Wii was like sitting on my windowsill, and so I like yanked it back, and it goes like plummeting to the ground.
That was a bad idea.
Yeah, I was like, oh no.
I mean, it's a good thing that the N64 is basically made for children's houses where things get knocked off.
Nintendo hardware is hardy, so it was fine. But I was just like, oh god.
Like, my device. I don't know if the Switch is this hardy. Probably not
as hardy, but still, I think hardier than its compatriots.
Well, I mean, Ben, his cat knocked his down and ended up, I think, did his screen end up getting slightly cracked, or was it just a screen protector?
I didn't hear this.
Because yeah, his Switch was knocked down by one of his cats. And so, I mean, he never uses it handheld really anyway. But, yeah.
That's pretty funny. I didn't know that. I'll follow up. We know that at least that the cartridges are designed to be spit out. So
yeah,
at least the cartridges.
Like I remember the like the PlayStation 2. If you set it down too hard, it would make the disc jump and stuff. So it's like
shaking my head. It's not a console designed for children. It's a console designed for people who are like, gonna put it on a level surface. Plus, like, if you put in a CD, where's the fun of taking it out and blowing on it and putting it back in? Listen.
It was nice to always feel like you had something to try if it didn't work. Like,
it usually
works. If it just doesn't work, you're just kind of like, I guess I'll wipe it and try it again, and that never works.
No, it never works. Although I remember when this is also a tangent, but when we were in our CD prime, I remember one of my friends in elementary school had a CD, and I'm pretty sure it was like Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. It's the one with the stripes that are like red and orange. You know what I'm talking about? I think it's NSYNC.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. It was cracked.
The Backstreet Boys CDs were blue.
Yes. It was cracked. Like, not all the way in half, obviously, but 1/4. Like, you know what I mean? Like, from the middle out across half of the CD. And it still played. And I was like, how is this possible? I mean, it probably didn't play well. I'm just saying it turned into thing, and it played music. But mind blown as a tiny child is what I'm trying to say.